All right, I think I'm all set here. Let's bring on the man of the hour today. Let's see if he's available. There we go. There we are. All right, testing. Do we have our man live?
I'm live. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Is it good microphone or laptop static microphone?
I don't hear static on my end, at least. It sounds like you're loud and clear. Maybe a little bit, what's the word? Overexposed, muffly or something like that, you know? That might just be
Hold on. I might be able to fix it.
Yeah, that might just be your mouth being too close to the mic or something.
Could be.
Yeah, you sound fine. Oh my god.
All right, how's it now?
It sounded pretty good. All right.
Alrighty.
All right, if anyone in chat has any problems with how it's sounding, you can tell us. 1 second. 1 second, everyone. I need to shut this guy up. Shut up, Kevin. Hey.
Me?
There we go. Not you. Howdy. Anyway, let us now get to the main topic today. I brought Acer on because I wanted to chat about Bluepoint because, yeah, that was probably the big news. Like, everyone was going crazy. They were like, oh my god, I can't believe Sony's doing this. Like, how the hell are they doing this to, like, Bluepoint, like their premier studio? They even bought them and everything, and now they're just shutting them down and all that stuff. And I'll be honest, Acer, I'm going to let you yammer off, but I just want to say, I find this unexpected, but not surprising, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't think they would actually go through with closing it, but I've kind of seen the writing on the wall with the studio for a while now. Especially specifically after Demon's Souls remake, I was like, I don't know. I'm worried about their future, and I feel like the worst has come to pass. So I'm not as like, oh my god, how could this possibly have happened and all that stuff, because, well, for one, I've had a mixed opinion on the Demon's Souls remake, and I think even putting that aside, I just don't think the studio's been in a good spot for a while now. But let's hear you. What are your thoughts on all this?
First things first. I'm watching the stream. I'm not hearing any audio, but that might be the way my audio headset is set up. Are we for certain that people on chat can hear us talking?
Sure.
People in chat?
Let me make sure. Let me make sure on my side. Oh my god, how could this possibly have... Yeah, I hear the stream on my side, no problem. So.
All right. It's just my setup. So, more information has been coming out. People have been talking to developers that were laid off over there, and we have a bit of a clearer image of what happened. So how in the loop are you? How much do you know about what's been going on behind the scenes?
Okay, so my understanding post Demon's Souls remake is only so far that essentially they were apparently working on a secret project. There was ideas that it was God of War. I think it got announced, or maybe after the fact when it got canceled, there was a God of War like live service project. And then basically after that basically fell through, everything was up in the air with them. So that's as far as I really know about what they've been doing since Demon's Souls.
Well, so since Demon's Souls, that was also all I knew until I decided to read a bit more about it yesterday, and now I know much more.
Right.
But a day ago I didn't know anything.
So what was your first reaction when you heard it then? Like, before you read or heard anything, what was your first thought when you read that? Were you as surprised as everyone else, or?
I was a bit surprised that they would just close down the studio, and it wasn't a case of, we're gonna have a creative reshuffling of the studio, that they just shut it down. That kind of surprised me, but honestly, I wasn't expecting them to get on. Like, a lot of people are mourning, we'll never get Bloodborne remake now. And it's like, I don't think if Bloodborne remake were to have happened, I don't think they would have gone with Bluepoint in the first place.
Oh no, I agree. I don't think that moved the needle on it either way. It was clearly that for whatever reason, it wasn't happening with Sony. They just decided that they were going to let Bloodborne literally rot at the bottom of a flask or something.
Unless you can make unless Bloodborne could be a new live service game, the Duskbloods, But so what happened after Demon's Souls remake is all hands on deck at Bluepoint were shuffled over to help design God of War Ragnarok. I don't know exactly what they did there, whether it was a lot of QA, whether they did a lot of the modeling, or just did a bunch of contractor work for Santa Monica. But so yeah, that's how they get into the God of War loop, because they're involved in completing God of War Ragnarok, and it was apparently Bluepoint CEO, whatever his name is, who pitched the live service game to Sony. I had thought that this was Jim Ryan and Herman Holst being morons, because we have to have a Spider-Man live service game, which Insomniac was working on. We have to have Concord. We have to have Marathon. Like, everything goes into live service.
Right.
And that's around the time that this would have been announced. When Jim Ryan, it's like early COVID has begun. It's like at that period. Actually, it's like during COVID it would have been announced, when like the Fall Guys and Fortnite are taking off. But no, it's Bluepoint that asks to do a God of War live service game. The staffers at Bluepoint were people have different opinions on this internally, but from what I've read from the staffers that have come forth, they were not happy. This was management at Bluepoint just deciding, we want to make this. And the people who worked at Bluepoint were, kind of like, hey,
about God of War, or about the live service aspect. So just God of War in general.
Well, well, working on God of War Ragnarok, I don't think anybody would have minded. Studios do contractor work in between projects all the time. That's just to be expected. But the live service angle is what people weren't super thrilled about. Those that have come forth, at least, because programming online games is very, very different, because they had cut their teeth in it a little bit, I guess, with Demon's Souls remake. There is a multiplayer aspect to that game, but
it's obviously building a game, from a live service game, like completely different.
Yeah, and building a game from the ground up to run on network code. That's like, I've never done it, so I'm not completely certain I can even speak to how it's different. But my cousin, who is a much better and much more serious programmer than me, he and I were going to make a multiplayer game. This would have been around 2009 or 2010.
Right.
And we called it Battle Grid. And the idea was that you were in a cube that had a grid layout, and you could shoot the walls to have blocks spawn, and you would spawn blocks on other blocks. And then you would just dynamically change the map. And that would be like the right mouse click, and then the left mouse click would just be firing your gun. And that was like our competitive multiplayer game idea.
Right.
And we tested it, and we basically, like, it might have been fun. It might have been a bit too unintuitive to play, but we decided, nah, this would be too complicated to program, given that there's just two of us and we're both teenagers.
Right.
Too much. But so yeah, Bluepoint was the Bluepoint management were the people who decided, let's do live service, and just blew up in their face, because you've retained a staff that's very much not specialized in that, and just doing this pivoted. Yeah. Whereas I had thought initially it was, like I said, Jim Ryan and Herman Holtz going, let's buy Bungie, let's buy Insomniac, let's buy Bluepoint, because Bungie and Insomniac were both working on live service game. Bungie with both the Destiny games, but which is more like game as service, I guess, but also with Marathon coming out.
Right.
And Sony was working on a Spider-Man live service game that has now been scrapped. When they bought Insomniac back in the day, I thought this was their pivot to make Ted Price CEO of PlayStation. Right. Like when Apple bought Next, because they didn't want Next or any of those products. They just wanted to buy Steve Jobs back.
Right.
And I thought, because Ted Price, Insomniac, he's like a PlayStation veteran, legend of the industry. I thought that was their play. Give him a $200 million payout for Insomniac, because it's such a low price. They bought it for $200 million, which is ridiculous. And I thought that was, and then they're going to make him the CEO, because I think Sean Layton was stepping down the year after. But instead, it was Jim Ryan. And it was like, okay. And now it's kind of like, I had then thought, they bought it to build up their live service studios. That's what they were trying to do.
Right.
But as for Bluepoint, I don't really get it, because Bluepoint was never gonna do like what are they gonna remake a great Xbox game? Like no, that was never gonna happen. So what was Bluepoint gonna do independently? They were just gonna continue probably being contractors Sony could pull on, and they would just negotiate with PlayStation, be like, hey, can we remake this game? Can we remake this game?
Right.
And I think that as a business with Bluepoint, it was working fine up
Yeah,
until they were bought
They
out.
could have gotten Ico or whatever, right? So
They could have gotten Ico. They could have maybe pushed for Bloodborne, or they could have pushed to be doing the God of War remakes, which Santa Monica is doing internally. And I guess we could talk about that a bit later. The projects Bluepoint pitched before they were shut down.
okay, because Bradley Adams here in the chat first off says hi to you and sees your morning Bluepoint.
Hi, Bradley.
Yeah. So he's also saying Sony apparently told them they need live service, and Bluepoint came back with a God of War live service pitch. Also, hey ADHR. Anyway,
okay.
So do you think that was the idea? They gave a mandate from Sony, or were you here reading something different from people?
I had not read that. I had read that Bluepoint management came in with like ideas for doing a live service game. But if Sony did give them the live service mandate, then that would align with what I just said about buying up all of these studios to build up the live service.
Yeah, because it feels weird.
To shore up.
It feels weird to me if the management just decided on their own, hey, you know what? We're going to also get in this live service trend, you know? Like,
well, there's a lot of stupid people in management.
I'm not denying it, but I feel like if you were a formerly independent studio who recently got purchased by Sony or whatever, you get the expectation that, okay, you're going to want to do what Sony, presumably originally bought you for, which is doing really good remakes of their games. So it feels weird if the idea is like, hey, Sony, how about we do a live service for you now? It's like, is that really what Sony bought? I don't know. It just feels like if I was in charge, that wouldn't be the first thing I'd think about, pitching to Sony. But if the idea was, hey, we bought you, we're mandating a live service, all right, how about you give us ideas on what you think would be best? Well, that's your, choice, right? You get to decide which kind of live service project you want to pitch for it, right? We're not going to mandate that. That makes sense to me then, because it's like, okay, well, we've got this devil's bargain now. We have to make a choice. Well, why don't we go swing for the swing for the bleachers or whatever, and go for a God of War, because God of War, from what I understand, is one of Sony's biggest properties, right? I've never really thought about it. Yeah,
they were just working on it, so they would have had a great in to be like, let us be the B team on God of War. We helped ship this one, and it sold 20 million copies or whatever.
Yeah, so I feel like that would definitely make sense to me if the idea was okay, we're just gonna have Sony, like Bradley's saying, you're just a general mandate across Sony studios. We're gonna be pivoting to live service, so then we just kind of make it where we just got you and stuff like that. You guys know your team and whatever. So what are you thinking would be best? And they decide that. Now again, I think we can talk about the live service thing, like you said, and the whole God of War situation kind of separate from that. But again, I feel like the biggest problem I think Bluepoint had was that I feel like Demon's Souls remake did not sell as much as Sony hoped it would. I get the distinct feeling just from the overall silence surrounding the game after its launch and everything, that they kind of were a little disappointed with it internally. And they probably thought an idea would be like, well, we have a lot of talent here still. So the problem was not, either how much we budgeted or our focus on graphics for the remake or what have you, or maybe this is the wrong project for us to try to make as the kind of tech demo for the PS5 and stuff like that. Maybe we should have done something smaller scale. I think they just thought, okay, we're going to keep dumping all this money into Bluepoint to do this, but we have to make the money worthwhile, so we'll make it a live service project instead. And that way, after we buy them and we put them on a live service or whatever, they'll make oodles of cash, because like all our other dev studios, they're going to be making these great successful live service projects that'll just make us trillions and trillions of dollars into perpetuity. And I think that was the thinking. I think that obviously was not how it was going to play out whatsoever, but I think that was what they were expecting from it. So again, purely speculation on my part. I have no insider knowledge on this, but that's my sense when it comes to the remake specifically and the subsequent purchase of the studio.
I think what was happening at the time, I do think that if Demon's Souls remake had sold 10 million copies, I do not think they would have ever been do a live service. I think they would have just put them to work on doing Bloodborne, or just hey, okay, do a Northern Limit DLC. Let's, you guys do it. We'll hire, Miyazaki for like a week, and he'll like give us some ideas, and then we'll implement it. Or we'll get some FromSoft staffers to like give it legitimacy, or they would have just gone, hey, do Demon's Souls 2. If it had sold monstrously well, then I think Bluepoint would have gone very differently. But I don't think that. I don't think that. So I think Bluepoint was set up for success by Sean Layton and Shuhei Yoshida, and during the transition from Layton to Jim Ryan, I think you have that pitch, that shift of focus towards live service, because Sean Layton, and I think like people really glorify Sean Layton's leadership, and like, yeah, in hindsight, damn, he was better than what came after. But I think the PlayStation 4 was the worst era of PlayStation up until the PlayStation 5. Basically.
Really? Worse than PS3, you think?
Oh, much worse, because the PlayStation 3 got a lot of good games.
I guess PS3 did start like turning around at the end of its life cycle, huh?
PlayStation 3 came out swinging in games. Like, I don't love the Uncharted games, but they were really technologically impressive at the time, and they came very early on. The Resistance games, the new Ratchet games, the Infamous games, like the PlayStation 3 hit the ground running in the first party development. Third party support on PlayStation didn't really have, like, it was really terrible, and then they kind of figured out how to work with the
limitations.
The PlayStation 3 has like a really strange core setup where I think the Xbox 360 had like 4 cores, but the PlayStation 3 has 1 core.
Yeah, so
or
it was really
something ridiculous.
it was something difficult, I remember, for devs to work on as a console compared to the others. So
yeah, it was it didn't have just a basic Windows or x64 interface, something. I don't know enough about computers to speak to that. But so yeah, I think what happened was that Sean Layton and Shuhei Yoshida, they threw a Hail Mary with Bluepoint and a bunch of other projects, and it's like, do Demon's Souls remake, it'll sell a lot, hopefully, and then you can keep doing this. But then the management changes and the game doesn't perform excellently. I think it probably made its money back. How expensive.
Again, I'm speaking relatively. I don't think the game like bombed or anything. I just don't think it sold enough for what they were. I think internally they were expecting like, this is going to move so many units. We're going to have so many PS5s and stuff being sold. So many people are going to buy this. And I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I think PS5 did sell decently well, but I just don't think not enough people wanted to play a remake of Demon's Souls with all the graphical fidelity stuff, right? I think there were probably plenty of people who did it, but I think when you count like the marketing and just probably the budget that went into making, because again, as far as I'm aware, Demon's Souls is the only game on PlayStation 5 that really takes advantage of the hardware to its maximum degree. Like, I don't think any game looks on a technical level as good as PS5 is graphically. So
it's the only exclusive they have.
But my point is that
totally.
I don't think they had anyone that was taking advantage of the technology to the same extent as them. I think part of that is just that the amount of work and budgeting and everything that has to go into actually making it so you can maximize the most out of the hardware is just such a high bar for developers that most just and especially, as we know, developers are just terrible with optimizing their games and stuff recently, that it's just people are like, no, it's just not reasonable for us to do it in the time frame or whatever. And as what I recall, Demon's Souls remake came up pretty polished and well optimized, basically.
Oh yeah.
So like,
I've not seen any people complain about technical performance. Ratchet Rift Apart, also an early PlayStation 5 launch title, came out really well optimized. Took advantage of the hardware.
Yeah, but my point is that like, I think what happened was that like it sold decently well, but then they were like, oh, it's not really like the gangbuster banger like numbers, like this is our new like flagship title. Like, if I had to expect, I think they were probably hoping that the Demon's Souls remake would be like their new God of War or something where they could like milk as a
especially since Elden Ring the year before, I believe, had sold like 20 million copies or something.
Yeah. Like
but
And I said at the time, I said like any studio that isn't immediately greenlighting remakes and remasters and PC ports of all of From Software's library right now are doing absolutely foolish. I stand by what I said. I think now the moment for that has passed. I think the Elden Ring hype, especially after the DLC, has died down majorly, and I think that they're now in kind of a position where it's like, well, what do we do with like this really beloved ancient at this point, gaming wise IP that we're like kind of letting sit here and rot, but like nobody's like super going to go crazy gangbusters if we really put all the time and effort and money needed to make it like next gen today and all that stuff.
Yeah, but also I agree. I just think that we should separate, because the management that greenlit Demon Souls remake is not the same management that saw like the budget item, like when it came in and started selling. There was a shift of management, and the new management, they already have different priorities. If the game had sold well, things would have gone differently, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'd also point out that it was a launch title, and launch titles, they are often budgeted at a loss. So it's actually really funny if you replay the old Ratchet and Clank games on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
Graphically, technologically, they get less and less impressive with every entry. Because like the first one, that game has impressive shadows today. Like
right.
you put that game on and you play it. It's like the lighting and the shadow work. It's pretty impressive. Like games today released that do not have nearly as well tuned out lighting engines as that game had. And then you play the second game and it's not quite as good. And then the third game is like really sort of hacked together because it was like a total mess before release. And then the fourth game is just, they really stripped everything out of it, all of the complicated movement and all of that. So because the first game was it wasn't like a launch title, but it was an early sort of release. And they served as tech demos, like the Sly Cooper games, like Jak and Daxter, the Precursor's Legacy. And like Ratchet Rift Apart and Demon Souls, both games really highlight seamless loading screens. And that was really highlighted in the marketing, I remember.
For PlayStation 5?
Yeah. When they were marketing Demon Souls Remake, they were like really focusing on...
I remember Ratchet and Clank being used for the tech demo because it's like, look, we're going to completely different planets through these like portal things or whatever. And it's happening instantly with no loading screens or anything. It's just seamless, right? They're really showing that off. Obviously, there's a huge uproar being made about how Demon Souls remake loading screens were like 5 seconds versus like the 30, or was it a minute of the original Demon Souls? So like, they were making a very big deal about that.
Absolutely. And the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that game also, I think it's probably made its money back now, but from the Insomniac League, we saw it had like an $80 million budget, and it only made like $82 million or something. I don't know if that accounts for marketing costs or anything, but at this point, it's probably...
I doubt it. I think marketing probably gets put into a separate budget spreadsheet. Marketing a PlayStation game is different from marketing just a third-party game, because you could just put the game front and center into the PlayStation Store, and that'll just generate 1 million sales a year, probably. I think that's how Horizon Zero Dawn became such a big franchise. Also, Guerrilla Games founder Herman Holst is now the CEO of PlayStation, and it's honest,
like
I always have questions about Horizon, because I'll be honest, I've never met an actual Horizon player fan. Like I just
there are no Horizon fans. There's just people who turn on the PlayStation, go to the store, and are like, what do I want to play? And Horizon, because Guerrilla Games' founder is now the head of PlayStation, because he's there, he highlights his company. This is my theory.
Yeah.
And Horizon is always front and center on the PlayStation Store. And eventually you're just like kind of browbeaten, and you're just like, hey, I've seen this game like 10 times, 20 times as I go through the PlayStation Store. Why don't I just buy it and check it out?
Yeah,
it's just like you're exposed to it so much.
Yeah,
that
it just feels like it's astroturfed for me, because I'm like, where is this?
Yeah.
Where's this like groundswell popularity for this game? I just don't see it.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't exist. It's just normies that buy it, play it for an hour, and then never think about it again.
Yeah, I guess.
But so from the Insomniac League, we know that Ratchet Rift Apart did not blow up in sales, but I think it was never really thought of as this is gonna sell a shit ton of copies. I think it was always thought of as this is a core PlayStation IP, and it's going to give, like, we want the first people to buy the PlayStation 5 to be our core audience of like hardcore PlayStation fans. We don't get them in with Call of Duty. We do not get them in with FIFA. We get them in with Demon Souls and Ratchet. Very core, beloved PlayStation franchises. Probably going to cost, it was $80 million to do Ratchet. Let's say $80 million for Demon Souls Remake. Not sure. We spend $160 million, maybe, $200, $300 million with marketing to make these games. And through that, we'll buy hype and buy-in from our core audience, sell 10 million copies of the PlayStation 5, and then we can sort of just drip feed live service games or whatever.
Yeah, so I am saying here, it was a launch title, and the PS5 haven't sold a lot at the time, so it's underselling kind of makes sense. I think what also happened was just that you mentioned the transition or whatever. Again, I think what happened was it was still below a lot of expectations for what they were hoping for a title of that scale, like you said. So I think it just really went below because they went strangely quiet with Demon Souls, and I think even Ratchet to some extent, because I think they had a film coming out at the time, right? So that probably inflated their
No. That was 2016. That was the remake.
Okay. But like, yeah, so for like, I think in general, I think something happened behind the scenes where either they projected their numbers too high or something went off with the budgeting or what have you. And it ended up just being this case of they're like, okay, we're going to just quietly sweep this under the rug. Cause they did not, like, you don't see like these major commercials or ads or crazy, like, promo materials of being like, oh, get your PS5 now and you can then play your Demon Souls remake or whatever. I remember like one time, I think when sometime like in the first month of launch, where they had like one of those, what's it called? Like one of those little banner things where they had Demon Souls remake and like a few other of their like early launch titles like highlighted there. And then that was like it. It was really strangely like kind of just swept to the side, right? And at the time, it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe, they have different ideas or maybe they got like bigger things in the pipeline. But now like it's been years now and it seems very clear that like, someone made the decision that like this wasn't cutting it and they needed to completely, change formulas. And as we know, they went to live service formula.
I don't know, because I don't know. I think different people had different ideas. I think on the Sony side, it would not surprise me if the budgeting people only greenlit Demon Souls because they wanted a good launch title that would sell a lot. Management, like Sean Layton and the gang, would not surprise me if they thought, we'll do Demon Souls, it'll sell, and then they'll probably pivot to Demon Souls 2, they'll pivot to Bloodborne Remake, or they'll do their own original game that's also like fantasy, and then we'll have, our first, like Bluepoint will transform them into a first party from software that, we can, we can use them, and maybe we can gobble up some of Japan Studios' staffers that that they then shut down. And then Bluepoint probably thought, well, we'll do Demon Souls, and then we'll pitch other projects, and they were, I imagine there were many plans, many things sort of cooking at the same time. But yeah, I think that they were basically doomed to live service and obscurity the moment the sales numbers came in.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think there were probably a lot of plans, and I wonder if one of the ideas was probably that they would try to get like more From Software remake titles down in the pipeline after this is done. Because again, I agree with you. I think the fact that Elden Ring someone had to have looked at those 20 million Elden Ring sales and thought, we need to capitalize on this. I can't imagine nobody in all of Sony were like, okay, we need to be greenlighting a lot of projects. I think Demon Souls might have been like the start of this. They probably, because I'm pretty sure Demon Souls remake started even before Elden Ring released, right? So I think if I remember, it was like a year before Elden Ring because it was supposed to tie us in. So I think maybe they were anticipating that Elden Ring was going to sell a lot and stuff like that. They wanted to kind of like, ride that wave of hype after seeing like the interests that people would be interested in because of Elden Ring coming out soon or what have you. They would then like piggyback off of that in order to essentially, ride the Elden Ring wave so they can try to eat into some of those numbers. And what ended up happening was that, well, I think Demon Souls Remake might have even come out a little too early. Like, you give it another year and a half, it might have been able to be like, hey guys, you just played Elden Ring, why don't you play this one now, and stuff like that. I think I Am, though, is also right, though. It could also be that because of some of the complications with even getting a PS5 early on, that just was a major hindrance on the momentum of the game's sales. And that maybe now it's selling like a lot or what have you, but obviously the decision was already made by this point.
It's probably right now it's probably receiving the final bump of Demon Souls sales that'll ever happen.
Right.
Just because of the news of the closure, it'll probably sell like some extra copies, but 10,000 copies more than normal. Probably, it's just like you look at the graph of sales over the year, and it's just like flat, small bump, and then it's just flat again next week. But yeah, so if we want to move on a little,
right,
when Bluepoint, after they pivoted away from the God of War live service game, I think they were like 4 years into development on that, or 5 years, and Sony management was like, "Hey, what the hell are you guys doing with all of our money? We need to see something." And the management basically decided, you know what, we need to shut this project down, and we need to pitch something new. It's pretty amicable, seemingly, from the interviews that I've checked out, that Sony decided, because also Concord had bombed.
Yeah.
I believe Sony, didn't they? A Marathon got like, people freaking hated that. It's going to release in a couple of months or something. It's going to bomb. It's going to do terribly. Nobody's going to play.
High Guard just happened. Let's not forget.
Yeah, and it's like the mood for live service was well and truly different by that point from when it was originally pitched. And so I think Bluepoint, they probably had a lot of leeway because Sony executives, and you know what, if Bradley is correct and it was the Sony sides, Sony pushed for live service, then Bluepoint probably had a lot of leeway to be like, look, let's turf this project. Maybe we can reuse some of the assets we've built or whatever, and let's pitch something that's a bit more in our forte. Sony would have been like, hey, yeah, we kind of pushed you into the live service role. Let's both pivot. And apparently Bluepoint pitched 4 projects in the last year, and Sony rejected all of them.
Really?
2 of the pitched projects were remakes. And okay, so if I'm remembering correctly, 2 projects were remakes, 2 projects were either original IP or sequels to something. I'm not quite sure. I just know that 2 were remakes, and 2 of the pitched projects were already in development at Sony. And I don't know how that is distributed, whether the original ideas or sequels or whatever were in development. I'm going to assume it was the remakes they pitched that were in development already, because I don't have a lot of faith in Sony management, and to be like, oh, hey, what do we do this remake? And they're like, we're already doing that remake. Oh, what do we do this remake? And Sony's like, oh, we're already doing that remake. I think that's probably how it went down. One of those is almost certainly Bloodborne. I would not be surprised if what's that studio? Nixies. Yes, Nixies, I believe they're called. They are another studio Sony bought that specializes in PC ports. I would not be surprised if they are currently hard at work on Bloodborne.
You think there's actually a Bloodborne project in the works?
Yes, I do, and I can't speak too much about this, but I do know some people who have told me that it's happening. I don't know anybody who is working on it, but I do know people who say it's happening. I don't know if those people are lying to me. They might be, but
yeah,
I have been told that it's happening.
Because I feel like at this point, it just feels like Sony's just forgotten about the IP, and I don't know if they're actually hearing all the clamor for it, or if that clamor is as significant as it looks like online. Because it can be hard to gauge sometimes when you look at online discourse. I would hope Sony at least has good people that are polling and marketing and sampling and giving them at least a good idea of samples of so they have good data to work with. I would hope that at the very least their executives aren't that incompetent, but God only knows.
And like I said, if it's I think the studio is called Nixies. It's that PC port studio that Sony bought a few years ago. If it's them doing it, it's like hopefully it's just a remaster. Just bump up the resolution, bump up the frame rate, clean up some bugs if you can.
Add
If
the
you
shortcut
find any
door.
quality. Yeah, well, yeah, you know.
Just do it. Just do it. It'll be a thing you can put on the marketing. It'll be a little YouTube short to be like, oh my god, I can't believe the devs actually added this back in. It's the most useless, pointless thing that will not matter whatsoever to the overall gameplay.
Lance,
but everyone will be
yeah,
like,
Lance.
oh my god, Poggers, it's open. The door's unlocked.
Lance McDonald makes a video about it, 2 million views.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm telling you, do it. It's going to be like the lowest development cost ratio to marketing budget. It'll be the greatest. It'll be the greatest little thing. It's like, well, it's like, do we really have to do this? Yes, the fans demand it.
But yeah, so back on Bluepoint, I said 2 projects they pitched were already in development. So I theorize they pitched Bloodborne because they did Demon Souls, and I feel like, you know, it kind of follows. Hey, we did Demon Souls. Why don't we do Bloodborne too? They seem to have really enjoyed making Demon Souls. There was a lot of passion surrounding that project.
Yeah,
I don't hate it.
I got the feeling that
and
there were definitely a lot of devs that were passionate on it for sure.
Oh yeah, like Bluepoint staffers started following me when I first started posting my Demon Souls and Kingsfield videos on Twitter. All of a sudden, I had like a bunch of Bluepoint staffers follow. Yeah, that's how I knew it was happening. Before when it was a rumor, I was like, man, I made all these Demon Souls videos, and all of these Bluepoint staffers are following me on Twitter.
Yeah, I forget what I noticed, but I remember like 1 or 2 times, like it came up or something or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is a Bluepoint guy. Okay, that's kind of random.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's why I imagine, you know, just. It kind of makes sense. We did Demon Souls, we'll do Bloodborne.
Right.
That's why I think that's probably one of the projects they pitched. And the other project that was already in development that makes sense for them to have pitched would have been a God of War remake. Just do the original trilogy, we'll remake those. Now we know Santa Monica is remaking those internally. So it would be like, oh, because they were working on a God of War live service game, they would have had a lot of God of War assets.
Right.
You know, how many, it probably would have been Norse God of War, or it might have been Greek God of War live service. I'm not sure. Yeah. I didn't read too much into that, but, you know, maybe some of those assets could be justified being like, okay, we built all these landscapes, built all these models. We can just reuse them in a Greek remake, or
well, you make it a sequel or a spin-off or something, right? Then you like
yeah.
Like I don't like what's Kratos' boy's name, like Atreus or whatever. Like just do like
Atreus.
Like do a spin-off with him or some other character. Like I don't know God of War. So like,
they probably will, because he's Loki. He's Loki too.
Oh my god, he's my long lost twin. I can't believe it. Oh man, now I gotta play the game. Damn.
Those are what I think the projects they pitched that were already in development were Bloodborne and God of War.
And Sony basically rejected them because they were already working on them, you're saying? Yeah.
We know that, double check me on this, but 2 of the pitched projects were already in development at Sony. And then basically they hadn't been producing anything for a year. And the Bluepoint staffers, according to the interview, they kind of knew that the end was coming. Some of them have been given opportunities at SIE, you know, other studios sort of absorbing the fallout of this. Some staffers have not been getting these opportunities. I guess, you know, be good at networking, suckers. I don't know, but yeah, would not be surprised if. I imagine we'll see the sort of fruits of that God of War live service game in some capacity, whether it is just here's a bunch of landscapes, here's a bunch of foliage, here's a bunch of, you know, pots and urns and just character animations that we can now recycle. You know, Bluepoint worked with Santa Monica to deliver God of War Ragnarok. Now Santa Monica is doing God of War remakes. Maybe they can just gobble up all of the God of War assets Bluepoint made, maybe take care of some of the people from there, and you know, go full steam into the remake.
Maybe.
But yeah, so that's the situation as I understand it. But there are more interviews coming with staffers. There's more information always going to come out.
Yeah, it seems like everyone in the news was like really like they were really latching onto this. Like I was actually surprised how much attention this seemed to be getting.
I think people are just really tired with where the gaming industry is right now, and I don't like. If this had been any other studio, like Guerrilla Games, they make games that sell, but like Media Molecule made Dreams, I believe 6 or 7 years ago, haven't released anything since, haven't even released the game on PC, even though it's such a slam dunk release it for PC title. If they'd shut down Media Molecule, even though they haven't done anything, I think people would still have been up in arms, because I think people are just fucking furious with where the game industry is right now. And anything, like any bit of news, you're going to get this reaction until things begin to look better.
Until morale improves.
Until morale improves, the shit flinging will commence. The shit flinging will intensify until morale improves.
Also, hey, no, Bray, good to see you. Also, Xavier's in the chat. Yeah.
Hey, Xavier.
Yeah. So, moving on then from that is that it seems like a lot of the news is going into it. I suspect a lot of it, like you were saying, like if it was any other studio, I think because it was Bluepoint, because they were the premier like remake studio, no one would deny their technical capabilities and talent they have there. Nobody would deny.
Even I wouldn't.
Yeah. Like nobody would like criticize them for not actually giving it their all and doing their best with their projects or what have you, right? Like they are for sure like a good solid studio that whether you liked all their projects or not, you would want to, that you'd be like, I want to see more from them and hope that they keep on improving, right? And I think that really got under people's skin. That's like they haven't, like they did Demon Souls remake and that's it, right? Like that was their last big release, and they're just kind of gone. And it's like, how do you go from making like probably the remake of one of the most beloved IP in Sony's catalog, and then they just shut you down? Like I think that one like really just must have like miffed people. Like that really got under someone's skin, because like it's amazing just how much attention this has gotten. And like I said, I'm not entirely surprised with it and all that stuff, but again, even I'm like really, like you couldn't just like the biggest problems with Bluepoint, like you could probably just change a few of the people at the top and like that would be it. Like you don't need to like literally throw out all this talent. Like you said, maybe Santa Monica will absorb them, but like inevitably some people are going to go different directions.
This is a studio that I believe has been in operation for more than 15 years, with a lot of the same core staffers being there all that time, and you're just gonna throw that away? Like, are you guys insane? These people who know how to work together, who know each other, like a team that has been formed for this long, you're gonna piss that away? No, like you reorganize them, you give them something else to do.
Yeah, I think the problem is that a lot of these execs, they just don't realize how important, like, it's not just about the trademark you have for a dev studio's name, it's about the talent behind the name. And I don't think at least enough executives at Sony understand that. Maybe they did once upon a time, but I think all those people are out now, because clearly they're doing the EA thing where they just kind of like take studios, they suck them dry in like stupid ass projects, and then they just kind of dissolve the studio, being like, I guess this didn't work. Okay, now to buy the next big name. And it's like, no, it's the people. It's the people and what the people have been making and are good at making. You can't just, they're not like these interchangeable blocks or something that you can kind of just like throw in into like whatever little scenario you want, and they're going to be able to fill out like your spreadsheet the same way. Like it's like, that's just not how it works.
Did you follow up on the Half-Life Infinite development?
No, I do not pay attention to Half-Life, period.
Oh, this is the, so people are also, because Phil Spencer was fired, they're lying and telling everybody, oh, he's gonna leave, just a couple of months before the 25th anniversary of Xbox. He's been with the company for 30 something years. And he's gonna leave, he's just gone. Like, yeah, right, okay, you fired him, great job.
Well, to be fair, I know he's been getting a lot of criticism lately. I remember hearing stuff from some buddies of mine and thinking like it felt like he was like not running Xbox particularly well and kind of ran to the ground. Personally, I felt like he was kind of the guy that was like just kind of trying to manage and keep the decline from getting worse. Like I feel like he was in the best. He was doing the best he could with his situation.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody could have done better with that sinking ship than he did, because he is not actually in charge of Xbox. He is, he's a very weak executive. So when it comes to big acquisitions, he goes to the Microsoft shareholders and he's like, I need $100 billion to buy out these studios. It's going to increase our profit margins. Okay, great. And there's been genuinely a lot of great stuff that's happened under his leadership. Obsidian is not the same company they used to be. Most of their, a lot of their most talented people are gone. We're talking about Chris Avellone, but
for sure. I mean, I think just losing Avellone alone is like a huge blow to your studio. Like, why would you let that go? Like, that's just.
But Microsoft, Obsidian always had financial problems. Microsoft took them in, and now they get to just release games. It's the same with Double Fine, Tim Schafer's company.
Right.
They made Psychonauts 2, one of the best games we've gotten in the last decade. It's a rare Acer 10 out of 10. Double Fine was always it was a weird sort of AA studio that's always sort of jumping between publishers, and then Xbox bought them up, and now they just have financing for their wacky projects. That's genuinely great. More of that would have been preferred, but to see kind of what the hell is going on, all of these problems could just be solved if these companies hired a decent manager and gave him the actual powers to manage the organization. Don't hire him and then try to micromanage every decision he makes. You can't, that's not how it works. You don't revive Apple by getting Steve Jobs and then giving him having him go on team meetings. That's not, you pick a leader and you follow that leader. And if the leader sucks, the organization's going to suck. But you just have to go with what he says. You're going to have to trust in the people you put in charge.
Well, I think the problem is that we have this terrible shitification of corporations and stuff, where there's been so much bureaucratic bloat and everything, and personnel and all that stuff. And they're starting to self-correct after COVID and all that stuff, but they still are really hesitant to go all the way, and so they're mostly just getting rid of like we're seeing with like a bunch of lower level studios and stuff, where it's like, no, a lot of your upper management really needs to just go and like get reorganized and streamlined, and like this is not something you're going to be able to fix by like just cutting off the edges here. Like, this is just going to accelerate the problem.
The guy currently in charge of Microsoft, Sadella, what's he called? Like Nyla Sadella. He's been with the company for a long time, probably like a super genius, like 180 IQ wizard, just knows everything, incredibly smart and whatever. I'm looking at Microsoft over the last 5 years, and I'm thinking, wow, this company has really gone to shit. They released an operating system that doesn't work, and they release updates, and the updates, they break your computer and delete data from your servers, and it's just like, how can you possibly be this incompetent? And this, going back to Halo Infinite, so apparently, and I was just reading up on this, and there's a bunch of people, look, I don't want to make this political,
right?
But there's a bunch of people who really just hate on Indians right now. It's sort of been in vogue recently to just shit on Indians. There's a lot of shitty companies and scam organizations in India. I know people from India. My experience with Indians is that mostly just great people like everywhere else. But so what happened with Halo Infinite is that they would have Indians brought in to work on like 18-month contracts, and half of that time was spent just teaching them how to work with the engine, because the agency that they would have gotten these employees, these contractors from, they would just lie and be like, yep, they all know how to work with, I think it was Unreal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Halo Infinite used Unreal. And it's just like, and yeah, you would just have these scam agencies that would just send them people who didn't know how to work on these machines and on these engines. They would spend months just educating them on the basics of how to do it, and then they like, that was just a rotating roster of doing this shit, rather than, hey, you can just have a team and that's your Halo team, and you don't screw around with that. You don't fire half of them because you want to downsize and save yourself a couple of million. Like, it's a $1 trillion company, Microsoft. You can't pay these people to just sit around for 4 months while you reorganize between projects? Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
It's ridiculous. And this sort of mismanagement is just endemic throughout the entire industry, with people that are completely incompetent being placed in positions of authority, people who don't know anything. And that's, also another problem is just, we are finally, I think, facing the reckoning of how big the industry has gotten. Because there was a time, maybe 20, 30 years ago, where in order to work in the games industry, you had to be a genius. You had to know programming. The guy designing the shaders and the enemy pathfinding and who was doing who created the graphics engine, like, that was the same guy.
Right.
Today, these are all very different projects, and you would have different people working on all of this.
Yeah, you have a guy
and what's
who's
happened
like,
is
you have a guy whose expertise is like, how the foliage blows in the wind, or some guy whose thing is like
I'm the
water or something.
I'm the UI designer.
Right.
Okay, like back in the day, the UI designer would also be like he would be the writer,
right,
of the game too, and he would also be a playtester, and he'd also be designing the enemy castle or something. It's like everybody back in the day needed to have proficiency in every component of game design. Outside of maybe like sound design was always sort of its own thing, but not exclusively. There was a lot of sound designers who still had coding backgrounds. But what's happened is that, like, that was back in the day, and there were maybe 10,000 people in the world who had the skill set to actually work in this industry, and it was a small industry.
Right.
As the industry's gotten bigger, the tools have gotten more specialized. So now, you can just be a shader. Yeah, more people can go in, and the jobs are more specialized, because now you have 400 people working on a game instead of having 14 people, and each person is working in their own little box. It's just, and people are now working in their contribution to the project exists in much more isolation from everybody else's. So back in the day, like I said, you and 14 friends were working on a game, and you all kind of knew what everybody else was doing, and you just juggle between each other, whatever part of the project you were working on. Now it's all much more compartmentalized. You need like gigantic bureaucratic organizations to manage all of this.
Yeah, we talked about this with Bethesda and everything as well. So
yeah, it takes 5 years to make a game. Back in the day, it took like 18 months. And it's kind of, we're getting to the reckoning point where this model doesn't work anymore, and we're going to it's going to disappear. Outside of maybe your Grand Theft Autos, they're going to sell $2 billion day one, so they'll be able to keep that operation going. But
do you think this is something that operational costs will be resolved because of AI and stuff like that? Do you think that these what are called LMM programs or whatever will be able to essentially replace people in these hyper specific niche jobs, and therefore you can now have like a group of 10 people again who are able to focus on the big important stuff while the AI does all the ancillary crap? You're saying
I don't think so. Okay. I don't think so. I think that the major problem that we're going to have to get over is corporate bloat. And you're going to remove a lot of the middle management. And in doing that, you're going to make it so that you can't really have a 400-person team anymore. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 40 people. Because just in order to manage more than that, you need to hire so many more people. And every single person you add, they are adding so much more bureaucracy to the project. There's so many nodes of connection. There's so many more nodes of connections between people, and it just gets too complicated. But just scale things back a bit. I mean, is anybody listening to this who would be personally offended if games went back to looking like PlayStation 3 games did? No. PlayStation 3, okay, I think people would get mad. But what are you going to do? Just not play video games? Grow up. You're going to, if the next Call of Duty looks a bit worse, people just, not going to buy it? Like, no, I don't think that's the case at all.
I think the indie scene is proof that, there's at least, maybe they're mutually exclusive, but at the very least, there's a still sizable audience who doesn't care enough about graphics that will inhibit their purchase of titles. Because otherwise, the indie sphere, which is by its nature overwhelmingly, less than to graphical par of modern standards, are still, I mean, again, we said it earlier, no game is real in PlayStation's lineup, at least, has ever really matched Demon Souls Remake. But even putting that aside, the point is that the general like standard that we see from AAA titles in that scene is not the same as what we see in the indie scene, and yet indie scene, people would argue, is growing faster and doing better than ever. So
yeah. Ian Fran was talking about in chat about sound design being linked with DSP. So yeah, I'm not a sound designer. I know very little about the sound design, as has been revealed on my Resident Evil streams, where I apparently know nothing about volume and decibels. But yeah, but on LLMs, so the problem I have with these, not to say that AI is useless. We've talked about AI before.
Yeah.
I use AI when I'm programming.
Right.
But I'm very particular about it because
you're also one guy.
I have.
You're a one guy dev, right? So it's like.
Well, yeah, but like, so the closer to output the AI is, the worse of an idea it is to use the AI. When you're doing math, you're just sort of trying to figure out pathfinding. You just throw all of your pathfinding code into the AI. You describe the problem very specifically, and then you ask it, like, what are some functions I could run to maybe clean this part up? What are some, what do you have, like, is there some, can we condense this sequence here by just applying some arithmetic or algorithms that I don't know, but which mathematicians have already figured out? A lot of that stuff, like, the further removed from what people get to see the AI is, the better, because the image that's in front of people at the final output, it's so specialized, it's so specific, it's like the merger of so many of these different elements, and it's too specific for AI to really grasp. One thing AIs just have not gotten better at is classification, because that's not, like, you can't really handle that with you can't handle. So if it's kind of a complex. I was doing a lot of this research before the first generation of LLMs came out, right, because I was studying Chris Crawford's story engine, like the Erasmatron and such. And my idea to solve interactive storytelling was that you would just need a story engine that was powerful enough to understand genre classifications, right, and group classifications. The problem is that it is fundamentally aesthetic and cannot be reduced to an algorithm. For example, if I asked you to give me a definition of a fork, you could, like, it's a pronged instrument you use to eat food with. Okay, right, cool. Your hand would fit that classification. Right. So the classification needs to be more specific.
Right, you might go, well, it's something like it has to be a non-organic pronged instrument or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But there are elephant bone forks, and you've just excluded them. And the problem with this algorithmic approach towards classification, and AI fundamentally, I don't believe will ever make the leap here. The problem is that you can either be so specific as to exclude all non-forks, or you can, like, the more specific you are, the more things that are obviously forks you're going to exclude. But in order to capture everything that is a fork, you're also going to capture things that are not forks.
Well, isn't the solution then that you need to be able to have some sort of catch bucket that lets you go in and be like, no, I want you to exclude this or something like that? Like, just kind of say, like, something so that way you can do quick edits or something on the fly, so that way it's able to keep cycling through, like, say, different classifications until it reaches something satisfactory, and then it moves on.
A person can make that distinction, but an AI can't.
But what did it?
If it could, you wouldn't have the classification problem to begin with.
Well, but isn't the idea that if the classification is at the very least semi-specific, right? So it will have its outliers, but if there is at least enough accuracy within it that within 1, 2, 3 tries, it will get to something satisfactory to your question or to your prompt.
Oh, sure. Like, and that's the cool thing about AIs, about these LLMs, is that for 95% of cases, they are good enough for the job you're doing.
Right.
Unfortunately, the code needs to work 100% of the time.
Right.
And because output, so I talked about output. When AI is used far away from the final output, you can actually you can integrate it well. You can use it to use math. A lot of developers use it to create temporary textures and stuff like that's
placeholders.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Placeholders record AI lines. I do that a lot in my videos. I never use AI. I always just use text to speech.
Wait, really?
And then
You're telling me that voice I hear whenever it's narrating, it's not an AI? That's actually you?
No, it's I use text to speech to read my scripts. Then I edit the video around it, very softly. And then I just have that. I play it a couple of times for myself. I write notes about what do I need to clean up? What do I need to clean up? Fix this, extend that.
Right.
And then, then I'll do my read of it, because I don't want to read the whole damn thing, have to edit my voice, and then do it again for the clean. No. Just text to speech, watch it like that. But so, with AI, you can use AI in a lot of good ways to design things. You cannot rely on AI to design something for you, because it's always just going to be slop. Because again, an AI doesn't have that aesthetic touch.
Right.
And the closer to output the AI gets, the less coherent and more just gauche and gross the output is going to be. So like I said, I don't think you're going to see a lot of these studios be like, oh, we have 3 creative leads, and we have a sound engineer and 1 programmer, and we just have a subscription to ChatGPT, and it makes our games for us. I think a lot of sort of upper management at these publisher companies maybe want for that to be the case. I think they're going to be waiting. I don't think that's going to happen.
At least not for the foreseeable future, you're thinking.
Yeah, and my issue with these sorts of AI utopianisms is that this was the first problem I picked up on, because I had been studying the Erasmatron and story engines.
Yeah.
And I have not seen any movement towards this improving in AIs for however many years we've had this technology. And I've not seen Sam Altman. I have seen nobody. Like Elon Musk hasn't talked about this. Nobody in the AI space has talked about this has talked about how they're going to fix this, because I don't think they really have any ideas about it. I think most of them are really interested in the math of it all. I don't think a lot of them have that sort of sensory, artistic interest in, hey, here's just a problem with your technology.
Yeah, they're mostly engineers, from what I understand, right? So.
Yeah, and everybody, all the people who are producing those terrible shorts and just spamming it on Twitter, and you're like, oh, hey, Hollywood's in trouble. Hollywood's in trouble. Like, no, man, nobody wants to watch this dog shit. What are you talking about? So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I think AI is going to be really useful, but another thing I would say to the sort of downsizing of the industry as it currently exists is that AI during the 7th generation, the PlayStation 3 era, what happened was that there became just this massive divergence in budgets. So on the PlayStation 2, you had a game like Shadow of the Colossus and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And both games utilized the console to its maximum. Like, they squeezed everything they could out of the console.
Right.
It is not obvious which one of these games cost $2 million to make and which one cost $50 million to make. I'm not sure what the budget of those 2 games is. Like, I think most people would point to, like, San Andreas. It's got a bigger map, so it probably cost more. But if you're a bit more savvy, you would be like, I don't actually know which one of these games was made by the AAA developer and which one was made by, like, the smaller dev.
Because there's definitely in some cases a gap narrowing thanks to stuff like UE5 and things like that. So I can definitely see something like that. But
the problem in the 7th generation was that all of a sudden a $50 million budget difference became very noticeable. And that gap has been expanding, but it's beginning to close again. Because as the tools get better, and now with LLMs, that's another tool for development.
Right.
Having that extra $100-200 million budget, it just doesn't generate obviously better results than, the difference between a $100 million game and a $10 million game. It's not as big as it was 5 years ago.
Right.
And the tools, every incremental improvement in the tools, it advantages the smaller developers that much more. So when it comes to AI, I think that's going to be helpful in downsizing the studios. I think that also just downsizing is good for everybody. All of a sudden, you get to know all the people who you work with, and you get to like we talked about with Bluepoint. You have these people who know how to work together, and that's so valuable.
Yeah. Was it IM, I think, said it earlier there, or someone was mentioning that there was like Bluepoint was like basically like 70 or 40 people or something like that. Like it was a relatively small studio considering what it was pumping out. So
yeah, and that's I would love to see that. I would love to see smaller games that can just sell 1 million copies, 2 million copies, and that's like a great financial return for them.
Well, are we seeing a lot now of like really small devs that are able to come out with some of them are getting like bigger publisher backing after the fact, but a lot of them are just indie devs who are like they have their idea, they're coming out with their game, and hey, if they hit gold they can make like a shit ton because it's like just them and maybe a few of their friends, and they're basically splitting like profits because their indie game went like viral or something like that. So there's a lot of that. There's
like
a lot of
Hollow
that
Knight.
happening. Yeah, for sure. Like,
and hey, maybe your a big streamer picks up a game and then it sells like 300,000 copies.
Right.
And like, hey, the game is budgeted at $10. Steam takes like 30%, but I'm walking away with what, $2.1 million, before taxes. As an indie developer, like, holy shit, man, that's so much more appetizing than doing this grunt work at Bethesda with 700 other like slaves just coding away, and that's sort of because organizing 400 people, that's a real skill. I've talked about this a lot. Todd Howard is a great game developer. He's objectively speaking one of the greatest video game developers of all time. The reason his games suck as of late is not because he's a bad game developer. It's because being a good game developer does not mean you're good at managing 400 people.
Right.
And that's kind of like another ugly secret about the industry is that you don't need 400 people to make these games. I mean, look at Skyrim.
Right.
You would think that with the advancements in technology, Skyrim would be cheaper to make today. That we would be able to make that faster, cheaper, quicker. I said faster and quicker. But
well, may as well
no.
Because it feels like it would be definitely slower, more sluggish, more languid. Like,
yeah,
imagine. Can you think of it? It'll be all true.
Yeah, but that's like, imagine current day Bethesda being tasked to make Skyrim again. They've made the game 10 times.
It would take them 22 years, probably.
It would take them 22 years. It would take them, like, they can't do it anymore. But you have like a smaller team, 20 developers who know how to work together. I think they could probably do it in like 10 years.
Well, isn't there a game that's kind of like following that? Was it like Fall of Avalon or something like that? I remember that being kind of like in the like trying to tackle that same genre as Bethesda. I can't remember how big that developer or whoever it was is, but I do remember that.
You're not talking about Avowed, are you?
No, not Avowed. It's not not Obsidian.
Obsidian.
Yeah. I forget. I think it was. I remember because there was like some vaguely King Arthur aspect to it. But anyway, my point is that I know for sure that there are games that have been coming out that have been like in that genre and they're smaller. Now again, I don't know how big they are compared to, say, something like Skyrim, what the actual ratio of the devs are in there or what have you. But I'm just saying, like, there's definitely a opportunity in the indie space, and you can even make an argument that because of new tools like Unreal 5 and stuff like that, that you are able to have, like, smaller teams actually be able to pump out something of similar to Skyrim's quality, or maybe you can say maybe even potentially better, in the same or even a smaller time frame. I think the problem though is the talent, because like you can't replace the talent that made something like Skyrim's map or something like that, right? Like the people who like actually like laid out the world map and filled it in with all the various things that it has at Bethesda, like that is a talent, right? Like the guy who worked on Oblivion and did all those dungeons, and we can all like laugh at like those dungeons are pretty like terrible, but it's like it's one guy that was had to make like all the dungeons in like what, like 2 weeks or something like that. Like imagine if there was like a team of like 2 or 3 guys, or you had someone who was able to like work on the pre-planning or something in advance before that one guy had to go in and set it all up. Or look at like say what Skyblivion's been able to do or what have you, even though that's over a larger time frame, because it's all like obviously they're all like modders working for free over a larger time scale. Yeah. My point is like there's potential where like what you need really is people who have both the time and the talent in order to be able to execute on something. So that's always going to be a limiting factor. But I think with modern tools, that time aspect at least has gotten a lot smaller and a lot more manageable, because you're not like wasting time trying to make it so you can do something within your engine. It's now just a matter of, you know, do you have the talent to be able to properly execute the engine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of this could just be, you know, people are always talking about what we really need is a second video game crash to just sort of reset everything.
Aren't we basically in that? Like, I feel like it's already happening. Like, and I don't think it's changing much.
Yeah, like I tweeted about that when we heard about Bluepoint. I don't know if I tweeted about it because of Bluepoint or because of Phil Spencer leaving, but it's the tweet goes, "Are you enjoying your second video game crash?" Because I think the second video game crash is pure cope. The idea that things are just going to get so bad.
I think it's consolidating. I think that's the problem is it doesn't actually make it everything burns to the ground. It just means that the largest companies will just gobble up the smaller ones and consolidate in order to be able to survive.
Yeah. And like the idea that a collapse can just save you because it collapses and then you have to rebuild from the good fundamentals. It's like, no. At complete cope, there are billions and billions of dollars invested in this industry. There are financial markets that are hyper-regulated, that are deeply, deeply embedded into this. You're not going back to the 90s.
Yeah, I think nothing short of like actual government intervention would be able to possibly even force it. And we all know that that's like, at its best, you can say it's risky to do that.
Yeah, like if you get the government intervention to save the industry, like, who do you think they're going to listen to? The gamers or the billionaire owners of the video game companies? Like, come on.
Yeah, like it's going to be like it would be a super tough sell. So I think the problem I think the only way that it's going to work for the industry is just to kind of accept that AAA is basically it's just going to keep going in the direction it's going. And that, you know, you just have to hope that the tools are going to continue elevating the indie space. So that way, like a modern indie title becomes what used to be AA or even AAA, like say 20 years ago or something like that, right? It'll be that same level of quality and stuff like that. And it'll be made in that same time span as well. So that's where I think is going to be like the salvation to the industry. Is like, you know, people are still going to want their cheap games. They're going to be wanting their fun, you know, games, and they're going to be wanting to make sure that their games come out on a reasonable time scale. And I think we've talked about this before. I think Japan has generally been doing the best on this, and that's because they still have a very strong auteur movement over there. And it seems that Japan, especially recently, they've gotten really, really into protectionism right now, where they are like really concerned about any compromises to their creative industry at the moment. So like whether it comes to anime or games, they're like they're really looking to being like, we can't afford to lose this, and so we have to make sure that whatever happens, this culture that we have right now survives somehow, so that way it can withstand what they see as a lot of hard times ahead, both for Japan generally and for the planet. So I feel that like as a result, like Japan has been able to, for the most part, be able to avoid a lot of these problems, barring some of those studios where you see they kind of like, I don't know, what's not really Americanized, but probably better to say Westernized, right? Where they're like, they're becoming sort of integrated, like Sony. This is part of the problem we were talking about earlier with Sony. I think one of Sony's problems is that it basically throughout a lot of its like old Japanese hands that had like all the the knowledge and the experience and the passion in the industry itself, and we've gotten a lot of like Western execs and stuff who like they're just the numbers guys.
Yeah. PlayStation is now headquartered in California.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, that's a terrible mistake. Like things are just there's no like there's no salvaging you there. So like. But granted, to be fair, Sony was going in that direction for a long time. It wasn't like they went to California and suddenly California made shit. They were already kind of, they were already kind of flirting with that for the longest time, and that was just kind of like the final nail for them of like we're cementing ourselves going in this direction. And I think a lot of the people that are still on the Japan side in Sony, I think a lot of them have been looking at it, especially like some of Sony's gaming's parent companies and stuff, and they're kind of being like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Yeah, like. Sony as a company, I have a lot of fondness for. Everybody had Sony appliances when they were young.
I still have them.
Totally. My favorite phone I ever had was the Sony Aqua M4, I think it's called. I really loved it because it was very thin. I could just like hold it, grasp it completely between my fingers. Maybe this is a bit of cope, but I believe that Sony has the native capacity to sort of reinvent itself. Sony, you could have a moment where the CEO of Sony, not PlayStation, just Sony, looks at the PlayStation division and he's like, we used to spend $50 million to get $500 million. Now we spend $50 billion to get $51 billion. Surely there's a better way of organizing this. How about instead of having all of these psychopath, blood-sucking monsters from the West making all these live service games? No, but like, so what if, you could have what happened to Capcom happen, where somebody in charge of Sony, somebody with management oversight over PlayStation intervenes and says, you know what, we're not going to do this. This industry cannot survive if we make a pivot towards the sort of, that sort of parasitic, just pay a monthly fee for everything that is being pushed over there. So instead, we're now going to focus on annual releases. Okay, this is why this is the biggest problem. I believe. I believe more than remake culture, more than everything else. I think really the problems with the industry boil down to the inability to release games in less than 5 years. I'm really sorry to everybody who likes The Last of Us. The Last of Us does not deserve a 5-year development time. Whatever corners you have to cut to get that down to 2 years, those corners are worth cutting. There is nothing being added in those final 3 years that is worth just this industry stagnating and people just going through childhood in between the release of 2 games in a franchise. And there is no reason we aren't getting
100%.
Yeah, and all it would take would be for Sony to just hire maybe a new CEO of PlayStation or just a management. Like we talked about this with Bethesda, how to save Bethesda, you kind of need to develop a new team within Bethesda to take over Bethesda. A team of highly motivated young guys who don't have girlfriends, don't have children, are really motivated, can just focus on this, because that's how the industry used to work. It was just a bunch of like Japanese guys and white guys in California who were total nerds, total losers, super geniuses, and who could just devote themselves fully to these artistic endeavors. And like you would just get the best people, put them together in Bethesda, insulate them from the management system of Bethesda, have them create something incredible, and then give them more power over the company to reorganize it from within. Kind of like what Ed Catmull did when Disney bought Pixar. They were very protective of and look, Pixar has gone to shit. Disney Animation has also gone to shit since, but they were very protective of Pixar. And one of the deals with getting them on board was that he would take over Disney Animation, and he did. And he was really like, you needed that different mindset, that different management style to overwrite the old system. And all of a sudden, Disney Animation became quite good again for a bit until they screwed it all up. But you get that going on in PlayStation. A guy who kind of like when Capcom revitalized themselves. Just you get a new guy in there, and his edict is, we're going to make these games faster. So Neil Druckmann, you've made a lot of money for this company. You've made a lot of games. If you do not release your games in less than 2 years, you're fired. And I'm just going to replace you with a guy who will do it. Because there is talent out there who can make these games that fast. It is possible.
Well, I think what happens is you need to make it where pre-production is being done when you have another project already, when you're already like about to release or working on another project. Like from what I understand, like basically Dark Souls 3 pre-production was probably starting around the time of Bloodborne's launch, which also overlapped, if I recall, with like the Scholar of the First Sin release. So like Miyazaki was someone who was tapped in, like he understood what the DS2 devs were going to be releasing for their final thing for Scholar. He already had like, the Bloodborne DLC was on the work, so he's working on that on the side, but he was at the same time already having it where he was organizing, thinking, and going through the conceptual stage for Dark Souls 3, so that way all of that could be done, so From Software could end up like coming out with like game after game after game, like what was it, every 2 years, every like maybe 3 years,
every 2 years
max?
basically.
Yeah.
The one Bearded in chat brings up a great point of companies needing to be more comfortable with asset reuse. Here's an idea that I've had.
To be fair, look at some of the shit that From Software took for it, but I agree. Where did all the shit that From Software took for asset reuse really get them? Like, it didn't change. Like, people complained about it for the first week, and then nobody cared because Elden Ring sold 20 million copies, and everyone enjoyed it.
Also, nobody cares because who gives a shit if it's the same door opening animation?
Right.
Like, what are we doing here? Are we clinically insane that we can't have 2 games use the same door opening animation? What the hell?
Well, that's because...
But this is an idea.
Clearly, Acer, when you look at all these fancy high-budget games with their special, unique reflective water and your ability to swim, even though the game does not ever require you to actually swim at any point, but hey, you can just you can just jump in that lake and swim for a little bit if you want. Like, clearly,
an
idea.
All
these games, that shows effort, Acer. That's how you know it is quality. So if you're just seeing someone reusing the same walking animation from all their previous games, clearly, these devs were just lazy.
An idea I've had, if I was put in charge of Sony, if I was doing the job of this sort of revitalizer that I'm pitching here, what I would do is I would not have these massive animation modeling budgets allocated to these specific studios. I would make it so that you would have basically mostly programmers. You would have some modelers, some animators working in these companies. But I would have one gigantic animation farm. And I want you, the game developers, to deliver me the game in a completed form, absent the visuals having been cleaned up. And then you just deliver me the game, you give me your creative team, and then you move on to the animation farm, and they spend their time building chairs, building a lot of assets that are shared among the entire company. So if you're the games are going to look too similar if they're all using the same assets. These games are already going for the same ridiculous, garbage, realistic graphical art style. They already look exactly the same. Why aren't they just sharing assets?
Yeah, Unreal Engine 5 has been taking a lot of that shit because there's the question of like, it doesn't matter what you do with it. It always looks like an Unreal game, right? So there's already sort of this problem with everybody moving to the same engine and then proceeding to essentially always have that same kind of stylistic look to it.
Yeah, Sony games already look indistinguishable from one another. What would really be the harm in just reusing the same sort of basic assets across all of this? And so when it comes to like cluttering, when it comes to these sorts of final details, you would have the sort of creative lead of the game, that's a core team that's involved with the game's design. You would bring them on board for like overseeing, like which models go where, and like we're just gonna, here are your you cobbled the game together from all of these placeholder models. And now the animation farm we have of 1,000 people, they're going to get to really just spit out a graphical upgrade to your game. And we're going to spit and shine it until it looks incredible, optimize the shit out of it. And that's just the final 6 months or whatever of that game's development. And then we ship it.
So kind of similar to what happened with like the Oblivion remaster, I don't know what it was called, but
kind of, where you build the game and then you hand it off to this department. And I was railing earlier against specialization. But if we do need to have, if graphics do need to meet these high thresholds for these games to be viable, why is this not done? Like, why do we assume it to be a better idea that Naughty Dog have their own animation department? It doesn't fully add up to me.
Well, because the problem is because the bureaucracy has to continuously sustain itself, and so if there's any change in the status quo there, then that could cause some people to lose their job, right? Because they won't be able to fit into the new bureaucratic system you're creating, right? So it's always this thing where the Kegane must continue. Like we have to have more of that stagnation in order to keep everything as is and going, as it were, into this same little standstill we're at. So I think the problem is that a lot of these dev studios, right? Like you see this with what was it? Rockstar, I think it was, right after Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever it was called.
CD Projekt Red.
No, sorry, CD Projekt Red. That was my bad. So like CD Projekt Red, it like they saw, like they were like, oh shit, we had like this really terrible launch for Cyberpunk or whatever, right? Like this was supposed to be our big one. We really screwed up. And then they actually went back to the drawing board and would be like, okay, what's our development pipeline looking like and how can we improve this? And they went back and they publicly said, listen, we admitted we fucked up a lot. Here's what we did to change it and streamline it. And look how much better this works because of it and how we're able to. And then they came back with like the DLC or whatever for that and ended up like, now no one ever complains about what Cyberpunk's launch was like because the game ended up.
I still complain. I'm still a hater. No.
Absolutely. Right. But that's kind of the point, right? It's like, that again, ultimately what devs need to do is they need to take accountability and they need to recognize that not everybody is doing a job worthy of their position in the company to do it.
No.
And what ends up happening is they all end up getting fired and laid off, and their dev studios get dissolved because they refuse to have their bureaucratic management completely reorganized so it actually serves a leaner, simpler, faster, just more efficient function. And whether that's because Sony mandates that they don't change things or whatever, or it doesn't matter, something needs to give here, and it needs to. If it is going to take like all these dev studios having to unfortunately like crash or whatever to do it, I mean, I guess it is. It'd be better if they did it wasn't that way, but things need to change and people need to start they need to start developing smarter.
Mm-hmm. Everybody saw the Oppenheimer movie. The Manhattan Project was run by just two co-founders. You had the technical know-how of Oppenheimer, and you had General Groves. He was sort of like, you think of him like a producer.
Right.
He's there to make sure the developer has everything they need, but he's also there to tell the developer, you will have this ready at this time.
Right.
Sony has like seemingly a really long leash, and I think that sort of, I hate that every time I'm talking about the problems I have with the industry, I'm just talking about Neil Druckmann.
Here's a point to be. I think what happened was that a lot of these publishers at Sony and stuff, they got scared because of the bad publicity over crunch culture.
Yeah, that's very possible. And look, crunch is always a management problem, but what I'm saying is that, not even just fire Neil Druckmann, but when you get to a point where you can't release games in less than 6 years, like you gotta like you have to at some point. And I'm saying this. I announced my game 5 years ago.
Right.
It's a bit different, okay?
Right.
But
different circumstance. Well, I think the problem
completely
is
different circumstance, and I did release my game partly. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that like. You can't say, oh, The Last of Us Part 2 sold 20 million copies, therefore it's successful. It's like, okay, well, the Jak and Daxter trilogy released 3 games in the time it took to make one Last of Us game. So I would say that series is more successful. We have H.P. Lovecraft's cat, in chat, talking about the dungeons in Elden Ring being rushed and reskinned. Okay, I'll grant you that. Would you rather have waited another year for that game to release so that the dungeons could all be more interesting?
Well, here's the thing.
just
I would even say that like the legacy dungeons got like plenty of attention. Like no, I think specifically this would be talked about like say your ruins,
the caves
your
and such.
catacombs.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I think
but
the caves are my favorite in Elden Ring, and they are, and partially because they're reused assets. They feel like actual caves you're going through with the different corners and stuff. Like I love the caves in Elden Ring. Now, I think the catacombs. I think catacombs are just boring. I think this is just the Bloodborne problem.
Sure.
And I
think what I'm saying is
to ruins, I'm like, does anyone really care if the same ruin assets are being used for like a bunch of different villages across the culture? Sure, it'd be nice if there were some differences and some cultural awareness and stuff like that. But the fact that it's all the same assets is what helps on the game readability, where you're like, oh, I recognize this. I played the first one back in Limgrave. I know how this works. I look for the basement.
Yeah,
the basement has a certain thing to it. Like they are simple and they do their job well and they present their stories that they need to. None of it required anything complicated as a result.
They're very disposable in the grand scheme of things. And look, I get wanting the caves and the catacombs to be more elaborate, to be more interesting. I'm totally there with you. Elden Ring would be a better game if it had better dungeons. Are you willing to put another year of development into the game to get that? And it's just like, you can ask that question. There will never be a game where you can point to it, where you can't point to it and say, this would have been better if they'd have spent more time on it. I'm really at a point with this where make it the same dungeon with just different enemies, reskin it. Just I don't care. Release the game. Well, I do not give a shit to wait anymore, like longer for this. Whatever those final 3 years of development The Last of Us needed wasn't worth it. You could have released that after 2 years of development. And if you couldn't, that is a failure so monumental for the studio that it needs to be sort of reorganized.
The problem I have is that I just don't see, like, again, I think for, like, what they are is perfectly fine, is what, like, it's perfectly serves the game and what we're having. And I feel like if you tried to make it more complicated and stuff like that and try to make them longer, more in depth, I think that would just add to an already existing problem with Elden Ring, which is just sort of the fatigue. You're going through it, you're going through everything, you're experiencing all the content, you're enjoying it all, but you're kind of like, man, I don't want to miss out on anything, but I also am just feeling very tired of playing this and do so. Now, granted, I was in the fortunate position where I took forever to beat my first playthrough. I kept like deciding I would just do little side streams where I just walk around old areas and take screenshots. Like I was someone who definitely kind of like stretched it out partially for the memes for as long as possible before I actually completed it. But I think that like just as a general rule, like that was like a very common complaint you would see with people would be like, man, it just felt like it just keeps going and going and going and going. And I think that's a problem that people have with open world games in general, is that they kind of just feel like they go on forever and ever and ever, and like they have all these things they want you to do, and it just kind of feels like pointless busy work. Oh my god, I didn't even know this was a thing here. This is cool. Anyway, so I think like at some point you have to kind of accept like what is it that you actually want from the game and what is it that the game actually needs in order to fulfill like its purpose, right? Like I think no one would complain about like Skyrim dungeons for being like, you know, they're not long enough, they're not complicated enough, you know, they're too samey or whatever, what have you on that stuff. It's like for what they're doing and the experience you're getting with that kind of like arcadey, like kind of go in, like have a quick like adventure or whatever, get out, like get some loot and you move on. Like they completely fulfill their purpose. Like not everything needs to be a Stormvale Castle or an Raya Lucaria Academy or something like that. I think at some point we kind of just accept that, you know, there can be smaller little experiences that give you that small doses of dopamine, and then you kind of move on before you get to the big stuff like your Lane Dells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And you know, it's always a bit of a back and forth because like, you know, you could use this argument to say that Elden Ring probably should have not had Kaelid. You know, the game could have come out even faster. You know, I'm not saying that you just rush everything. Like you still put time and effort and love into it, but it is possible to overthink things and overcomplicate things. And again, if Naughty Dog could release Jak 2 after developing it for 1 or 2 years, I just don't believe that they needed 6 or 7 years or whatever to release The Last of Us Part 2.
Well, feature creep has been a problem, and that's big. The thing it's like everything. It's like, oh, everything has to be bigger. It has to be grander. It has to be more complex. It has to be more unique. And then
the animations have to be more realistic. The inverse kinematics and like the movement of the clothes must be perfect.
Every character has to have their own unique animation set. You know, all that.
Yeah, and it's just like this is terrible. Your games are getting worse. Like, it would be one thing if Naughty Dog was making better games than they used to in the PlayStation 2 days, but they're not. Their games are worse. But yeah, that's Bluepoint talk, man.
Yeah, well, that's the again. This is sort of like going to it. Is that it feels like the Bluepoint is a signal of like a long-standing rot in the industry, and I think it's it's hitting people a lot harder now. Oh my god, sorry guys, the doggo is If you hear the pupper over the microphone, she's finally awake and she's angry.
Oh no, I heard her.
Yeah, she's not happy now. She's like, no. I have the diaper on her for stuff because she's in her heat right now. Anyway, she does not like it. Don't get mad at me about that, girly. Oh, right now she's on my bed staring at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm like, well, at least you're not bleeding on my bed right now.
Hey, where are you at with Sekiro DLC? You think we're getting it?
No. Absolutely.
What?
No. I think
it's only been 7 years.
Yeah. So the thing for me when it comes to Sekiro is that I get the feeling like that was a passion project for people at Activision or whatever. Like they really wanted to work with From Software on something like that. And so that was kind of the game they did it. And then it's done and they're happy. From Software is mostly happy. Like Miyazaki's probably happy because it gave like a redemption story arc for, oh God, what's his name from DS2? Tanimura.
Yui
right?
Tanimura.
Yeah. So I think everyone's kind of just happy with Sekiro as a project and they've kind of moved on. I think that's how that went.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see the Tomoe DLC, but you know, it's been 7 years. People, grow up. No, give up hope.
Listen, I'm one of those people who, like, you know, maybe if I played the game myself, I would probably be a contrarian and say, no, I think it's better that it isn't like the way the story set up or whatever. Like, it's never like, again, that's how I feel when it comes to stuff like Godwin, when people are like, oh my God, like we're gonna finally get like all this crazy lore on Godwin or something in the Elden Ring DLC. I'm like, that's just not happening. We're not gonna get a Godwin boss unless it's some weird like spirit copy thing or whatever that's like from his memories or what have you. Like it's just not happening. We have enough Godwin and those who live in death lore in the base game already. We don't need anymore. And I like, and then people are like, oh my God, Godwin's not that important in Miquella's thing. It's like, no shit. Like it was never, Godwin was never that important to Miquella and stuff like that. Like it was like, it's one of those things where I feel like maybe the community has ideas that like when I go through and I play, I'm like, I just don't see it. I just don't see it being this big thing. So I don't know when it comes to the Tomoe stuff. But hey, I think in your commentary for Sekiro, I think you laid out like, you know, like Sekiro feels like a very complete narrative overall. Like it feels like it's very well rounded. It does everything it really needs to. If it needs anything, it should get a sequel because hey, why not we have like Samurai Man in Korea and then eventually you have the third game take place in the Holy Roman Empire and then, you know, everything comes together.
Oh yeah.
Just he keeps on heading west, you know.
In the fourth game, he finds America. He's fighting the founding fathers.
King George Washington all over again.
Wolf is a he's a loyalist.
He gets the freaking musket attachment to his arm. Oh yeah. No, but yeah, like I think that when it comes to like From Software's games in general, I think Dustbloods is perhaps their riskiest thing. Like I think Night Rain was something small enough that the only real risk was maybe to the brands of both Dark Souls and Elden Ring. I do feel that kind of still happened where like, you know, it feels very half committal how they were handling Dark Souls bosses in Night Rain, where it was kind of like, oh no, like you know, we want to like beef up the roster or whatever. You added like 2 bosses for like for each game. It's so minuscule, and they added like 2 more, of course, for the DLC and stuff like that. But it's like it just feels like what was even the point? Like, and we all know the reason. It was for marketing. It was purely just to give the marketing push. Like that was all. It's like, oh my God, they're adding
also,
Freya.
I feel like Duskblood, Night Rain, let's just say. You know, I've fallen off of Night Rain. I didn't finish the DLC. I you know, am I going to? Probably not.
Well,
But
we will do it one day when I'm not taking care of this pupper. I promise. We will finish it together.
when
Anyway.
but with Duskbloods, like I also think because we were talking about live service pivots earlier, I think people are really over this. I think people, just your general average gamer, like I don't know, I'm not buying a Nintendo Switch just to play Duskbloods. If they
agree.
release it on PlayStation 5, like yeah, like I'll probably buy it because I want to support FromSoft. But if a lot of people were like, when Duskblood was announced, they were like really doom and gloom, like FromSoft just they've it's a dead company now. They're only gonna do this. It's like, man, they released they're doing 2 live stream games. Relax. Calm down before
well, here's the thing.
Everything is either great or terrible.
Well, here's the thing. Night Rain benefited from being, 1, relatively smaller scale, 2, coming out shortly after the Elden Ring DLC. So it wasn't like anyone was waiting a long time from anything from FromSoft for this. This was very clearly like a smaller side project. And the last thing is just that, just like, it's on existing hardware in like consoles, PC, like it doesn't ask you, like, you're not just shelling out for the game, you're now shelling out for an entire console. And it's like, if you're someone who, and I get it from Nintendo's perspective, because they want that audience that From Software has cultivated on the other consoles and PC, right? So this is their like kind of like trying to woo you. The problem is it can't just be From Software. You need to have a lot of other games that sort of, on the Venn diagram cross over with From Software fans, and you need to have at least a small but sizable library on your console right off the get-go that are convince people, hey, you know what? If I buy this console, I'm not just, getting it for this one game, I'm getting it for a bunch of these games, and I can enjoy a lot of them, and then they actually feel like their purchase is worthwhile and worth the investment. But if you're asking like someone like me, hey, buy this Nintendo console, which I haven't done since like probably like the original like Nintendo Wii or whatever it was. Yeah, I think that was my last Nintendo console. So like it's been a long time for me. You're asking me to buy into another Nintendo console in order to get one game, because I don't really care much for anything else really in Nintendo's library up until now. Like it's just not going to happen, man. So like I feel like,
and it's also,
I feel like Duskbloods' quality is going to be irrelevant. It's going to just be on this console that I don't know it's going to be pushing enough for sales. It might end up be kind of like Bloodborne, where it's like, oh, it's got this exclusive like wow factor, so if it's really good, there'll be like a legend about it. But like I just don't know if it's really going to be the next Bloodborne,
I'd also that's what I wanted to add, is that if you're trying to get the FromSoft audience, why would you do a live service game? Like that's not where we are.
I think because Miyazaki wanted to take a crack at it.
Yeah, totally. Like I think that was definitely a FromSoft push, but no, I would have considered it for a single player experience. For a live service game, I'm like, no, man, like
Yeah. I think Duskbloods was one of those things where you saw the trailer, like, oh my god, this is so cool. It looks like a spiritual successor to Bloodborne. Then you see all the interviews come out after talking about how it's going to be like PvE, PvP, like kind of like online game, and you're just like, oh, and then like all the hype died instantly. Like you just you felt
I wonder
deflation.
What they're cooking next. We'll probably get something new FromSoft related this Summer Game Fest in a few months.
So here's my thing. I think Duskbloods could be like their new IP push they're going for, right? I think that could be where they're like, this is our new IP. So then the next logical step would be either a sequel or another new IP, but kind of like a Derasane type new IP, where it's going to be a little smaller or something like that. Something that's like, just kind of like a little project, maybe build up on people's resume. I would like it to be Armored Core. I would like them to come out with the Armored Core, a new Armored Core spin-off for the sixth generation.
This is the answer I was fishing for when I asked the question.
Yeah, like this is like where I think I'm like, they should be doing Armored Core, because at the very least, unlike Demon Souls remake, we actually got comments about them being very happy with how Armored Core Fires of Rubicon sold and everything like that. So they felt the investment, which by the way didn't require it to have next gen graphics, just good enough for this generation.
Yeah, wow, hey, it's crazy. Armored Core it looked fine. It didn't have the crazy, insane, futuristic graphics that cost an extra $100 million.
Right, exactly, right. And this is the problem, is that From Software has always been the studio that has shown why all the current modern trends are just not accurate. It has been consistently been showing that like what matters most is ultimately you need to have a vision, a game, and anything that serves the vision you have for that game will be to the benefit of the game. It does not matter how graphically advanced it is. It does not matter how many unique animations it has. Like all of that stuff is like a sideshow. They're a nice cherry on top. They're the thing that you're kind of like, oh, it was nice they went to that extra effort. But if the core product is not, you know, solid and doing exactly what it's hoping to deliver to the player, then what is the point? What are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
And that
if you're
is,
nothing without your graphics, you don't deserve your graphics.
and this is why, like, as someone who has zero interest in Dustbloods because of like what we've learned about it, I'm also someone who says like, you know what? I think that Dustbloods is probably going to be a solid title from Software, especially after what they've proven with Night
totally.
Rain. Like we all agreed, like Night Rain was like, this was a great first showing. If you put more money, budget, and like effort and time into this, it could be like a great game, right? But from what I see with people, and again, I think this is helped by the fact that it is on existing consoles and PC. Night Rain benefits a lot from people who are probably very skeptical, being like, you know, From Software doesn't usually do like these mass multiplayers. I've played From Software, you know, PvP game. Like, I don't know if this will really work or whatever. And then they play Night Rain and they're pleasantly surprised and they're really enjoying it and they love doing runs and stuff. It's just like a fun game they do with their buddies and stuff. And it's a nice new way to, you know, express Elden Ring's combat system and things like that in a new format. And I think all of that kind of together makes people a little more interested in Dustbloods. And I think From Software will take the right advice from that to make it a solid game. And I think the problem though is that they're doing it on the wrong console. And I think that's going to eat them alive.
Well, I mean, they have a shit ton of money, so they can afford to make just flops from now on.
I don't think Miyazaki thinks the way you do. I think he's really wanting this to succeed because I think they want to get on Nintendo, because I think from Miyazaki's perspective, getting on Nintendo is like it's the last stone on his gauntlet, as it were, right? Like he needs this, and then he's going to be able to have he's going to be able to make From Software a developer that can essentially go to any console, like any of the bigger publishers or whatever, and be able to make whatever they want for everybody. If they can sell for all consoles or exclusives to each individual console, they'll be able to do it, and they can diversify that way. So that way, if one console's doing better than the other or whatever, like they're not feeling like they're behind and they have to like catch up, like building relationships and stuff like that. Like they're already kind of like setting their foot down. So I think he really wants Dustbloods to succeed. Whether it will or not, I guess we'll see.
I think it will do decently enough, but I don't think it's going to sell the Nintendo Switch 2 has the same problem every computer has today of just hardware and RAM prices and such.
Well, yeah, that's something that will hopefully solve itself come, like, you know, looking like 5-10 years from now, right? Like in the medium to long term, that will hopefully be a self-correcting problem. But like in the near term, it just, I feel like it's one of those things where we just got out of like the kind of COVID area, which was made like kind of warped the gaming sphere both in the positive and negative direction. And now I feel like now we're entering this thing with the RAM where like I think it's going to cause more distortions, where it's like I just don't know like who's going to be able to survive it and navigate through the end of this. So we'll just have to see, I guess.
Yeah, like they're pushing back potentially the release of the next generation PlayStations, and it's like, hey, what a great idea!
Oh,
because
I agree.
who
felt
needs
like
a PlayStation 6?
No, I agree with you. I'm like, why the hell do we need a PS6 now? Like, I feel like PS5's got another 5 to... Like I said, we don't have anyone that's been able to match Demon's Souls in terms of using the hardware. So why the hell are you going to be selling us new hardware when you haven't even been able to maximize the potential of the old one? Like what is this? It just doesn't make sense to me. So yes, I'm glad that PlayStation 6 is getting pushed back. Like it should never have been coming so soon to begin with. Like take more time, put it in the oven, think it over, push the limits and stuff like that, and like
push it back by another 10 years. Like before, like, what is the problem with video game design today that is going to be solved with stronger hardware?
Nothing.
Like the only thing, because like you said, we haven't maximized the utility of the consoles. So the only real thing that better hardware gives you is you can do sloppier coding. And like that's just, hey man, that's not needed. We need games to come out faster. solve that and then do a new console when people really are held back by the current generation.
Yeah, I could see Miyazaki's next game being the last trailer at this year's The Game Awards. Yeah, it's possible. I could totally see it. I just don't know. I just don't know if From Software wants to focus on something besides Duskbloods for their hype cycle right now. I feel like they kind of want to go all in on Duskbloods at the moment, and they'll save any announcements for closer to release. But who knows? I could be wrong. It could be they're going to announce that like the next Armored Core or something because they'll feel that be distinct enough for their audience and things that they're not going to worry about too much overlapping, especially considering it's a new console. So maybe PS5 could survive for another 10 years. I agree. New console every 12 years. Why is Acer talking through his phone? I don't think it's
Am I sounding that bad?
I don't think it's that bad, but yeah, it is. It's just got a little bit of a muffle to it, you know.
No, that's terrible.
I do think they should have limited the benefit of the doubt game to just Night Rain instead of 2 gambles. I agree. I do think it's weird how they're going straight from Night Rain to this. I get it, because probably the idea with Night Rain was like, oh, I'm already thinking of doing a project like this with Duskbloods. So yeah. Ishizaki, I'll greenlight your like smaller scale game that you can get out in the next year, and that'll give us good data on what we should do to improve, right? It'll give us an idea of like, oh, do people actually want this? What can we do to improve it or whatever? Like, I get the feeling that like Night Rain was like sort of the test case where they were testing the waters and getting a really firm idea about like, okay, what are the do's and don'ts and what can we do when we actually scale this up for a big release like Duskbloods?
Can we finally update our netcode after after 15 freaking years?
It's probably just Discord. Yeah, Discord is not well, Discord's going through a lot right now, so
oof. Hey Logi, do you have an exit strategy for when Discord destroys itself?
No, I have no idea. Like I'm not sure if like I should just be staying because I'm not paying for like Nitro or any like I'm basically a liability for Discord, right? So like I'm not contributing anything to their bottom line. So like I don't know if it'd be better if we kind of just stay or whatever, or do I want to like kind of just like find some alternative or something? Because it's a bit sad because I know I made the server because people asked me to. They're like, oh, what's a good place for us to be able to talk about lore and stuff like that? And I said, hey, you know what? If everyone really thinks I'm the person to be asking about where's a good place to discuss lore, I guess I'll just create it myself and let you guys chat about lore stuff there, because apparently all you in my community are coming to me to ask that. So that's what I did with the Discord server, right? So it's not like it's like this big like focus or priority of mine. So like if we have to close it, it's a shame because I've gotten some benefits from the community we have there and all that, but like it is what it is. So like we'll see. Again, unfortunately I just I've got this pupper to take care of, so like she's like eating up so much of my focus and my time that I just have not been able to really like game plan what we're doing there.
Yeah, true.
Alrighty, so
true.
I feel like that probably covers the whole of what I wanted to discuss with you about Bluepoint and stuff, and kind of pick your brain on that. Again, I think it's one of those things that like, again, personally, not. It's like, it's unexpected, but not surprising for me. And again, I feel like, could Demon's Souls Remake have potentially sold more if they did better? Yeah, but I'll be honest, I just don't know that even if like I got like the perfect remake of exactly like if we took a checklist of all the stuff the remake could or could not change and could or could not have changed and done well, like what, even if they like hit all the like, okay, this gets a check off, this gets a check off, this gets a check off, like everything they did, they made the right decision for everything. I just don't know if it would have been able to sell enough even then in order to to make the bank, because I just feel like Demon's Souls for whatever reason has this inherent limitation on its like sales ceiling. I think that there's just only so much you can do in order to get people to want to play it, even if there's someone who like really likes Elden Ring and they want to try to play something or more of their titles or whatever. For some reason I feel like
they want to try and play something a little bit better.
Well, I just think that for whatever reason Demon's Souls just doesn't have that same pull for people, which is a shame because I really love it and I think it's really special and all that stuff, but I'm not an entire audience of the gamer body, so
yeah,
unfortunate. But yeah, in the end, that's just the fate, that's just how it went with Bluepoint and stuff like that. The industry's in a really bad position and this sort of kind of cements it. I think that overall we are hopefully, I think it's not all bad. I think the AAA space has probably been the hardest hit by all these things, but I think indie space is still going to be doing great. I still think the AA space is going to be doing great looking forward, and I can only hope that we continue to see Japanese games like From Software be able to continue to like kind of succeed where so many other are floundering things. So, like, yeah, I get that's really all we can say. So, is there anything you want to add on the God of War front or side? Because you want to talk about that earlier, or?
Oh, well, what I wanted to add was what we talked about with the projects that they had pitched that were rejected.
Right.
We already brought that up.
Yeah, so we brought that up. Yeah, so I think in general, like, again, apparently they're doing the God of War remakes. I think the only thing I would add to that is I don't think that the problem is remake culture. I think Hollywood proves, because Hollywood, since the very start, has always been remaking their films and stuff. Like, how many, like, Phantom of the Opera adaptations, or, like, you know, the fucking Mudman, or whatever, like, Frankenstein. Like, you can come up with, like, a million IPs and franchises and things that Hollywood has done again, over and over. It has never been an issue of remake culture. The problem is that remake culture becomes a crutch because they cannot and don't want to produce new interesting single player focused IPs, or even like just general multiplayer games, like, you know, like kind of like Call of Duty or something like that. You know, just like the focus on the quality for those types of games have not been there. They have been chasing this kind of utopian live service model that was going to somehow deliver them from all of their problems, and no matter how much money they would spend in, they just need one success and it'll all pay for itself, and it just hasn't really been working out that way. I'm sorry to say, as someone who plays a gacha game, you are not the gacha slop. You will never be the gacha slop. You will never be as fun and enjoyable as the gacha slop. So stop it, just don't do it. The gacha slop is starting to enter your territory and is coming out with new big AAA single player, like, big budget action adventure games and stuff like Wukong and things like that. So what the hell are you doing? Why are you all trying to switch over now? Like, this is absolutely a disaster.
I always try to be optimistic. I'm cynical about things that, like, the new head of Xbox just looks like the worst possible person for this. But whenever you have these creative fields that become like sclerotic and calcified and just tired and bureaucratic, it's always when a new paradigm is introduced to it that you get like a breath of innovation into it. Like, you know, you get the like Scorsese and Coppola and Spielberg and George Lucas like shake up the old Hollywood system, and then, you know, you get into the 70s and the 80s and like the auteur era dies out. But then you have like home release and VHS, and all of a sudden you get stuff like New Line Cinema doing cheap horror movies, and you have like The Evil Dead, and like that comes a bit later though. But like you have like just home media. All of a sudden, there's a new way of doing business that's viable and that gives new people access to the tools to make interesting things. Then you get to like DVD sales, and you get to like home rentals, and now it's streaming, and that's kind of bad for movies. But
honestly,
I think it's good for movies
my only
in some ways,
with
bad
the
in other
whole
ways.
streaming culture we're in right now is that now Netflix does not come out with my anime Blu-rays for all the series that I really love. So I'm like, God damn it, I really love this. I'm glad it's finally getting adapted, but it's goddamn a Netflix quote-unquote production or whatever. So now I'm never gonna be able to get it on Blu-ray. Like, rah! So anyway,
totally. But what I'm saying is, I think the conventional industry, like, just like the old Hollywood system, it survived. It adapted to like change as little as it needed to still be viable. And, you know, Capcom, PlayStation, you know, like these legacy companies that are willing to adapt and make quality, they're going to be around. Square Enix just seemingly seems interested in only blowing its own brains for some reason.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like they're always like acting like they're like still at the top, but it just kind of feels like they've been slowly dying.
Yeah, just like maybe this is heresy, but does anybody give a shit about Final Fantasy? Does anybody younger than 30 give a shit about Final Fantasy?
I don't.
Personally. And so what I think is going to happen is that when a new paradigm presents itself. And, you know, maybe it's already here and it just hasn't formalized. Just imagine, you know, the streamers and the indie developers team up. And then you just have a brand new paradigm where every single day a new indie developer is going to sell 1 million copies of their game. And that model, that can scale really well. Until it itself becomes sclerotic and calcified and bureaucratic and whatever. But you know, I think there are enough dynamic, energetic forces in this industry not be all doom and gloom.
Well, the
Don't worry.
trick is to keep it decentralized enough so that way you have space for indie developers. So even if some indie devs end up, you know, like you're saying, calcifying because they essentially like crystallize their formula or whatever, and they're not able to adapt to the new trends or the new changes or whatever, there'll always be, you know, new blood constantly going in. The problem is like, as you're saying, because of the quote unquote crash just leading to this bigger consolidation, you're just having it where a lot more publishers, well, or we should say like a lot fewer publishers that are super big are having larger and larger controls of the overall gaming share market. So that's causing problems in the AAA space, but they know what's up. They know that the indie space is where it's at. So they're never going to try to co-opt that or what have you, because they themselves know that they can't get ideas. So they're just going to try to harvest whatever cool ideas they're seeing from the indie space and then basically try to buy their way into that. And that, I think, is probably the biggest risk. But I feel like as long as the indie space is able to maintain kind of that decentralized zone, and I think it will, just because of the way it's like the way that, you know, game development has become global, and you're seeing like obviously Chinese game development has been exploding recently, and I think you're seeing the same stuff happening, I think, even in India now, if correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I just think that like overall, I think that we're having it where there's just so many developers from so many different parts of the world that there's just this healthy mix that's going to be able to keep feeding into itself. It's just going to be really hard for there to be like, just like, you know, it's not like, say, in the Hollywood system where you have like, you know, 5 major corporations which basically control like 95% of the entire market space in that area. I just don't think we're ever going to get into that same level of like kind of monopolization where it's going to be really hard for us to be able to see innovation until those corporations themselves collapse. And the problem is we're living in a financial cycle where governments just don't ever want to see their big corporations collapse, right? Because they don't want to ever deal with the fallout of having to see that stuff. So we're in this really weird space where stagnation is kind of like the name of the game, and we're trying to be able to try to get some stirring of the pot within that. So
hey, you know, it's kind of like the order of the world is no longer servicing us, and we need a new Elden Lord to reforge things.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the plot of all of these games.
Yeah.
I also read recently. Maybe we can just briefly talk on this before we leave. There was an article or a study or something that came out and was talking about how Gen Z doesn't game as much. And, you know, video games for Gen Z are competing with like crypto and gambling and stuff like that, and everybody's posting like, how could this be? You know, what do video games need to do to like get this market back? And Gen Z was abandoned by the video game industry. There have not been, like, when Gen Z was 8 years old, what games were being made for them? None. They had Minecraft. They had what else? Fortnite,
Roblox?
maybe? Like Roblox. Like, it's just, I had Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, and like I had so many entryways into gaming when I was young, and I feel like younger generations, having not had that, obviously just have much lower of a buy-in and interest in this medium.
Well, you're going to condition them to accept loot boxes. Why don't they just go into actual gambling? Because yes, it's more risky.
Hey, precisely.
It may be more risky than loot boxes, but hey, the rewards are also better.
Yeah, and that's something that I would also, in addition to faster release, faster development cycles for games, that's also something I want. I want a return to platform owners' commitment to younger gamers. And no, that doesn't mean live service Fortnite slop for 8-year-olds. It means you make games that appeal to these kids. It means you hire the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds of today to make something that is interesting for younger gamers. Because, like I said, with who cares about Final Fantasy who isn't 30? But like, who cares about video games that isn't 30 at this point? You know, it can't just be the same box of toys forever. Like the new kids, they're gonna have to own their part of their space.
Yeah,
it can't be like we can't treat video games like the boomers treat real estate. We have to share. Well,
I don't know if I don't think I really have like a crystallized opinion on this. I just feel like because, you know, I really haven't thought about too much about like what the gaming habits for like Zoomer generation have been or what have you, but I just kind of feel like a lot of like the gaming industry's woes have been long standing, and like at some point you have to pay the piper, right? So it's just one of those things where like, you know, this song and dance have gone on for a while, but at some point the music stops.
This business model worked while we were still running on the fumes of the industry that was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
That used to be like 2-3 years ago. Now it's like, it's almost 2 decades since this industry was at its peak, and there is very little energy left.
Yeah. I think it's also running into a problem where, you know, a lot of people make a big deal about how like, oh, you know, video games, like they're exploding, they're the biggest thing or what have you right now. And that may be true. But I think another problem is that like films and TV shows and everything and books and stuff, like all of those things still exist. And they're still competing for your time and attention. So what happens is that I think that at some point the video game industry is going to be hitting its saturation point. It's going to basically kind of hover around. Maybe it'll go a little lower than its highs, but like eventually it's going to find its threshold. It's just going to be in a state where, like, you know, you've kind of hit the limits that you're able to get in terms of your maximum amount of customer base. And this is not even accounting for stuff like, you know, genres and differences, you know, like once you get into that, like obviously it becomes even more complicated. But the point is that like there's only so many people that are going to want to game versus people who are going to want to read versus people who are going to want to watch, right? Like at some point, or some people who want to listen because of music or something like that, like, or a podcast or something like that. At some point, like we have to kind of accept that video games are part of the larger, entertainment art ecosystem. And as a result of that, they are all competing with each other for everyone's same time. And the market needs to adapt to reflect that, to understand that you are not just like, you're not just competing with fellow game developers and stuff. You're competing with entertainment, period. And, you know, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people have just kind of looked at how like video games on their own have been growing and growing and growing for so long that they've never kind of reckoned with the fact that at some point you hit that upper limit and now you're just kind of like, you're just another form of like entertainment. And like you now need to somehow be able to find a way to survive in the same, you know, ecosystem as your Hollywoods, your Bollywoods, your, you know, your various like TV channels on like, you know, cable and all that the stuff. And eventually, and, you know, also of course with books, you have books, novels, you know, research materials, manga, you know, comics, like there's everything is all ending up in the same blender at some point. And that's where I feel like we're going to have to come, or like, I think dev studios are just going to have to be able to adapt to that reality, and that it isn't like, you know, you're able to make endless, you know, money flows trying to reap profits from gaming, because gaming is the next big thing. It is going to replace movies and TV, because at some point you hit the saturation point, and like you say, you know, there could be something else coming for Gen Z and afterward. That is going to add itself to that, and that'll be the next fastest growing thing. And then it's also going to hit struggle, because at some point we're gonna have so many different forms and ways to entertain ourselves and enjoy things, whether it's gambling or whatever, that it's gonna just become this giant, you know, smorgasbord market.
That's so sad that like, you know, Gen X had like movies and music, we had video games, and Gen Z, what do they get? They get gambling.
All they can do is gamble.
That's so sad.
Gamble away what little they have. Listen, Acer, this one's gonna be, I'm gonna win my 50-50 in real life. The game of real life can't screw me every
Do you wanna?
time.
Hey, do you wanna hear about a funny little gamba that I was doing?
Oh my god.
And I was ruck pulled real hard.
Oh god.
So I was I was in the silver markets. I've been in the silver market since last November. So I was an early adopter into this market, and I was playing with a lot of leverage.
Right.
And I had my silver investments grow and grow and grow up until they reached about $70,000, and I was like, "That's pretty nice. That's really nice." And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and COMEX had basically shafted the entire silver market. The price fell by almost 40% overnight. I lost almost all of my, like, I still came out on top, but it's like, and the breakers that were supposed to stop the sale of any commodity if it lowered beneath 10%. It broke, huh? It happened to break that night 3 times in a row.
It's
like, God damn it, they stole like $60,000 from me. Those assholes.
Well, listen, you gotta just keep your investment. Just hold.
Hey, you know, I should have sold.
Eventually.
Everyone was telling me, you know, you should sell, and I was like, no, it's gonna go up forever.
Listen, it can always get higher. You know, you just got to keep holding. You know.
Yeah, it can always go higher. It can always go higher. That's very depressing. Yeah, it's depressing. It's also just funny. You gotta laugh at stuff like this.
Right, well, it's
As if they were ever gonna let the little guy win.
Well, that's why I know a buddy who's into sports gambling, and it's like I never get that because I'm like, I know what happens with the referees and the umpires and everybody behind closed door. I'm like, I could, like, you know, you can do it. It works 90% of the time, but you don't go all in on that. Like you know, no. Like somebody at some point they're gonna fix it. You just know it. You're like, well. You know, it just so happened that that moment, the guy who was expected to win just happened to have that terrible injury, you know? It just happened to make, you know, just tripped over that nothing on the field. He
just happened to slip accidentally.
No, it just cost him, you know, it just cost him that, you know, that 2 meter, the 2 meters in order for you to cash out and win. Like it happens. Anyway, totally. But yeah, like we're seeing like the gaming industry obviously go through so many changes. Bluepoint's clearly a part of that. I was glad I was able to kind of, you know, pick your brain and get some ideas on it. Cause I myself, obviously I had my opinions, but I was good to be able to hear a second one and see where you think it's going and stuff. And I think, last thing, because I think this is relevant, I did sort of made a tweet kind of on this where I kind of both agreed and disagreed with you on this stuff. And I do feel, because I have played the Trails in the Sky first chapter remake, and like when I played that, I was like, this is the perfect remake. Like this is everything I could have ever wanted from like a prior title of a game I loved or what have you. And they went in and they remade it and they made every change that I could possibly want from it. And I definitely feel like there is definitely a case to be made that if we're going to have all these remakes and remake cultures, there definitely needs to be this understanding that there are definitely good remakes and bad remakes, and it can't just be a matter of, oh, is this thing available to you? Because at some point we are at some point we have to accept that like the new version is, whether or not it's true or not, right? Like the new version in the eyes of the general customer player base is going to be the definitive version, and nobody's going to want to play like the older title, right? And you can say like, oh, sure, that's, you know, they're stupid, they're dumb, you know, they don't appreciate the good art or whatever. And we can all say that or whatever and be like, yeah, that all may be true, but it doesn't change that fact that essentially, like, you know, like an quote unquote inferior version of the product is the one that's going to be remembered in most people's eyes. So I do think what there still needs to be a lot of standards for remakes beyond just being like, well, the other version's available, so, you know, it's okay if they just do something different. There's definitely a right way and a wrong way to go about it, I think.
I didn't. Yeah. I probably could have worded what I was going for.
It's Twitter, of course.
Differently.
Like,
it's I probably should have been like, look, I personally don't give a shit about any of the changes they make in the remake. What offends me is the inaccessibility to the original, because I was never, like, the only change, you put me in charge of remaking Demon's Souls.
Right.
The only change I'm adding is I'm just going to put all of your healing grass is going to be in a special inventory, just like your healing grass pouch. And it's going to have a max carrying capacity of like 10 or 8. And you can mix and match any number of grasses until you have 8, but you can only have 8 on you at any point. You can't bring more into the world.
Right.
And you can't buy more than that. That's the only change I would add. It's the only change I think the game really needs. That and maybe like omnidirectional rolling, maybe, you know, clean up the netcode, frame rate, stuff like that.
I would add more attacks to a bunch of different bosses and things like that, so that way the bosses have more variety, like say Penetrator or something like that. I in general would be a lot more liberal with the gameplay side. I think the problem with Bluepoint's remake was that they were a little too conservative on the gameplay stuff, which again, understandable. I respect the decision, right? Because, you know, you do it wrong and then like you essentially screwed up a From Software formula, right? Like it's something it's something you have to be careful of if you're going to tinker with it too much, right? So I kind of understand them kind of just like shaving along the edges and things like that. But I still would have thought that the better move would have been to get more liberal about it and just make sure that, yeah, you're going to be doing it right. And then I thought one of the problems was that what they were very liberal about was stuff like the art style, the sound design, the music and the OST, the general animation style of how the presentation for everything is done. That's
all my sauce gone.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, like it's one of those things where it's amazing how like you know, as someone who was never, you know, on the Demon's Souls bandwagon until fairly late into the game, you know, didn't even play it until going to play the remake, right? It's very strange to be seeing like you see every review or anything that talks about the Demon Souls and they're like the atmosphere, and then you see the remake. It's just like, oh, look at that! It's more From Software combat or something like that. Like the atmosphere never factors into any review of it because it just doesn't exist in the remake, right? And it's just one of those things where there's so much that is there's definitely so much that can be improved when you're taking something from like an older generation and trying to improve the graphics and stuff, but you have to have someone who really understands what made that original look work and how you're able to translate that into the newer technology.
AM brings up in chat that the best thing about the Resident Evil 4 remake is the original being available on every platform. And I also, like, to me, a remake is an opportunity to just go wild with it. You know, like, if you're going to remake a game and you're just changing the look of it, or you're just changing a tweak here and there, and look, I just said I wouldn't want to change Demon Souls too much, but, like, that's if I'm doing the Bluepoint remake. But if you task me with, like, remake it, no, actually, like, let me go crazy wild mode with it, because then, you know, the more you distinguish it from the original, well, maybe you want to sort of preserve the sensual essence of the original. Make it different. Make it very different so that you have at least a game that is different. Then you're not replacing it. That's the worst kind of remake where, oh, you've just replaced the original with a version that has more graphics. I think of the perfect remake as I think Resident Evil 2 remake is the best Resident Evil. People are mad at me that I think this, but I will prove you all. I proved Grass Healing to be superior to Estes, proving that Resident Evil 2 remake is the best Resident Evil game. Is no tall feat for me. I can get it done.
Needed for that one.
I can do it. I can do it. But like, yeah, Resident Evil remake, the original, like, that's a perfect remake because it's very clearly, here's what they would have done if they'd have had the tack and the know-how to do it originally. It's really faithful to the original, very different at the same time, but the original is still there, and the original is well worth playing, even if you've played the remake.
Yeah, for me,
and, I don't know if I could say that if it was just visual.
For me, I think the perfect remake is to take the essence, and I think this is something you were pointing out in your tweet, is you want to be able to take the essence of what makes the original good, but then you refine and improve upon it in all the areas where it is weak at without compromising the original vision, right? So, like, for example, I would not, I proved this during my playthrough, I would never have added the send items straight to Stockpile Thomas's box, because I think that completely breaks the gameplay loop in the Demon Souls remake. I get why people might want this, but I think this is something as simple as you get screwed over because you picked up one item too many. You now learn about the item box, and then you always make sure that you dump all your items in the box again, and you never make that mistake where you forget about it, right? Like, I think that is an important part of the experience.
One change that I would make on that front is that if you loot something and you get you would be overburdened if you pick this up message, I don't think the pickup should register, because the way it works right now is you loot it and then it automatically drops. Yeah, and then you can lose the, like, okay, that's obviously shit. That's a flaw with how the game's configured.
That's the change I would make. Then I would say you are over encumbered and cannot pick up this item. That's all you need to do. Just add a little text thing so that way you don't do it and you're like, okay, fine, I will make sure I drop something or what have you, or what they could. And then, like, also, like, a simple change would be like, whenever I return to the Nexus, take all the silly stuff that I'm never gonna want to have on me anyway, the stuff I'm always gonna be dropping off with Thomas. So, like, I don't know, my hard stone, my sharp stone, you know, like all the different ores and things like that, and just do that and make it where you don't have to take the ores back out for which they already do with the blacksmiths. You can leave the ores in. They
should have fixed the man-eater AI.
Yeah, man-eater AI, like I say, penetrator moveset. Like, there are tons of things that I think they could have done beyond just, oh, we made the Tower Knight magic on the head bullshit slightly less taxing. It's like, okay, so instead of like one hit with like a magic soul ray, it'll die in like 3 hits. Oh, whoop-de-doo. Like, wow. Like, such a crazy
I wouldn't be interested if we're talking about remaking Demon Souls and making changes. I would be interested in making it more of like a survival game where you die, you go to the Nexus, and to me, the idea is that, okay, let's involve the storage a bit more. So now you just buy items and then they just stay in your storage. But then you need to like select your loadout because you only have so many items you can carry, and like how much healing items are you going to bring? How many like mana items? And maybe add stuff like, you know, hey, repair powders and sharpening stones to like improve damage for X many hits and stuff like that. Just really tack on all of that sort of stuff to not necessarily make the game.
Lean into the Lies of P method, where you have like a certain amount of where you can basically do it on the fly, but you need a certain item to be able to you know, keep doing it. So you can't just like waste your time where it's like, oh, every like 2 hits I'm just gonna start repairing my item or something, right? Like I have to be strategic on how I do it.
Yeah, have it cost resources. Like really beef up the value of looting and resources. Have torches, have stuff like that. Maybe make it so that you can't lock onto enemies in the dark, so that you actually need a torch or a lantern. And a torch, you know, is light.
I think leaning into variety, if you make it kind of like Night Rain, where weapons feel like almost like you're playing as completely different classes and stuff like that. Because Demon's Souls has been the only From Software game that really kind of leaned into its slash, pierce, blunt mechanics to any significant degree.
Demon's Souls,
Like all the others, like you're like, oh wait, it did it matter? It's like, wait, I wasn't supposed to use a slash weapon on this skeleton or whatever? Wait, really? Blood was the way to go? I never noticed. It practically does the same damage. But like in Demon's Souls, I feel like you can lean in that more where, like you say, you actually have to consider like your build variety and stuff, and you're able to basically have some decent flexibility, being like, okay, I choose these different weapons or something. Because that's one of the cool things about Demon's Souls, is being able to be like, oh, based on my starting class, it really affects how I'm incentivized to start playing the game and going through it, and then how I progress in things, and how I may want to change up my builds midway, right? Like again, something that like really only Demon's Souls really got. I would also probably want to see like improvements to the
just a little addendum to that. Make item damage matters. Make weapon damage matter so much that you just have 2 weapons. Like, okay, I have a scimitar and I have a spear, because sometimes I need that thrust damage.
Yeah, because like in Elden Ring, you have like 3 weapons you can cycle through, and usually it's just because like it's usually kind of just like pointless. Like most of the time you're going to be sticking with your breads and butters or whatever, and like maybe there'll be like the one rare case where you do it. But yeah, having it where like, okay, I can have like maybe like up to 3 builds if I want, but then like I have to now decide like about like my item carrying and stuff like that, and carry weight and what I collect and bring back or what have you. Like again, there's tons of ways. Like, and again, maybe this will be it. Maybe From Software's next big announcement is going to be a Demon's Souls 2. They're finally coming back, and they're going to add all of this stuff in a Demon's Souls 2. They're going to really build upon the original formula. Like, I feel like there were lots of things that the Demon's Souls remake missed out on by not trying to improve it. I think they could have gotten around some of the soul tendency, that's the name, like the tendency system, have it not be exploited the same way you can in the Nexus and stuff like that, make it where you have to engage with it and things like that. Because I think for people, like what was difficult in the Demon's Souls era is no longer difficult in the modern From Software era post Elden Ring. And I think a lot of fans would have been more receptive to engaging with the tendency system overall if it was actually fixed up and made proper. So I think that would have been something that would have been cool to have included and stuff like that. And just, you know, like again, they did do some good changes, like how they fixed some of the drops on like the black skeletons when it came to like the pure sharpstone or whatever it was. Like there's definitely some good changes that Bluepoint did. It's just I think that they were too conservative with it, and then with what they were liberal with was the stuff where it's like, no, this was the thing that you were not supposed to be able to change. You don't try to like mess with the atmosphere and the tone of the original game, right? Like, why is it this colorful shit? Bring back my piss filter, right? Like,
yeah.
Or like we've already talked about like the enemy designs and things like that, and I've talked generally how about the general Hollywoodization of the Demon's Souls remake and everything like that, and then you add that to like the Bloodborneization of the OST, because every From Software game now needs to sound like it's got a full orchestra behind it for some reason. We can't have actual variety in our instrumentation.
Yeah, like Demon's Souls sounds like a Resident Evil game, like an old Resident Evil game. Just weird instrumentals and just creepy music in the background.
Yeah, and it sounds so good and unique and stuff like that. And like again, and it sounds completely different from say Dark Souls or whatever, like Dark Souls OST. Like there was so much distinction, and I think one of the problems is that yes, there are still distinctions between the OSTs in the games post Bloodborne and stuff, but it becomes a lot more of the big samey. I've heard this same thing with the strings and the large choir and the second phase now with even louder choir, and it's like it all starts blending together that you have maybe 2 or 3 songs that really kind of stand out as unique, and the rest just all blends together in your brain.
What's your favorite soundtrack? What's your favorite song from the Dark Souls 1 soundtrack?
Oh god. Okay, so like a classic example would be like, like either the opening theme or the main, like the character creation theme or Firelink Shrine or something like that. But if I had to limit it to something like a boss or what have you, I would probably... It would have to be somewhere either between like, probably Moonlight Butterfly. Like probably there, but like Ornstein and Smo would be a close second. But like Moonlight Butterfly / Gwendolyn. I think, just like that like kind of like eerie, like very ethereal nature that you hear with like the single female singer during that entire time. Like I just think that like
it sounds kind of like a Demon Souls song.
Yeah, for sure. But like it has this strange like kind of kind of uplifting ethereal quality to it, right? It doesn't have that same somberness that like the Demon Souls equivalents would have, like during the ending theme or when you're in Latria or what have you, right? Like I think the closest I can think of that would be more like a Demon Souls song would probably be like DS2, and that's not really the OST. It's the Milfinito singing in Shrine of Amana. Like that one kind of captures the same feel almost like there.
Former royal's wife in Latria, kind of, yeah.
Wrong. Sekiro is immune to Bloodborne OST's touch. It has the special Japan buff. It's like no, we have to have.
It has instrumentals from Japan.
We have to bring out the Koto for this one.
My favorite Dark Souls 1 song, I think we've talked about this, is the Princess's Bedchamber song. Because it starts, it's just like blaring and loud and divine and epic, and it's just like, it's like Dark Souls. It's incredibly epic, but the longer it goes on, the more sort of deranged and kind of twisted and creepy it becomes, which is also very, very Dark Souls.
Yeah,
so
it's like
I
it
love
starts out
that.
very bombastic, and then it slowly quiets down, and it becomes almost this like background thing, and you're kind of like, oh, it almost feels a little unsettling the way it is. Like, how long is she gonna be talking for? Like, what are you trying to sell me, lady?
Whenever I just briefly bring up Dark Souls in a video of mine, I always have that music in the background because I like it so much.
Well, yeah, I think it's a very good song. But like, so generally speaking, I feel like again there are lots of complaints to be had about Demon Souls remake and everything that we have. Like, there's definitely things that could have been changed or done better. But ultimately, I don't think that was going to be able to move the needle significantly enough to be able to change it. I think other people brought up the point, lagging PS5 sales, the fact that it's a launch title, and like so many other things. Like a lot of it was kind of going against it, and I feel all of that together, plus like you were mentioning the change in management, probably all contributed to Sony just being like, this didn't sell like we were hoping for. I don't think we're going to keep going with this. And maybe if you're right and they are working on a Bloodborne remaster, maybe they're going to test the waters and be like, maybe now's the time or something that we should be going back. Now that Duskbloods is on the way, I can definitely see them being like, okay, clearly these guys are trying to build on the momentum of Duskbloods, so maybe we should undercut them and try to come out with our own. And this may be the first step to that.
Maybe we should mistime another From Software remake.
Yeah. I think that at least Sony, if Sony is working on a BB on PC thing, at least I think that that's a good direction to go in for sure. That they're at least looking into that. I don't know what Bandai Namco's doing with Dark Souls, man. Like, you got 3 entire games that you could be remaking right now. Like, everyone saw the Dark Souls remaster trailer. They were like, oh my god, it's gonna be like the Blue Point thing, but for Dark Souls. And then they saw the actual remaster, and they're like, oh.
But yeah, we need to do it. That's another stream. The Dark Souls 4 What to Expect stream. We'll be doing one of these days.
If they ever announce Dark Souls 4, kill me now. I'll be bringing you on and telling you, here's the shotgun, here are the shells, loaded, and just hit me, man. I'm not ready. I'm not ready, boss. I don't want to go through this all over again. Let it die.
Logi, the game begins, and you hear a voice, and it's a different narrator because the lady passed away last year, I think.
Yeah, unfortunate.
The voice goes, "There was another age." And then Dark Souls 4
Yeah.
logo comes up on screen.
Wait, what?
There was another age.
Wait, what?
That's the title.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, indeed. There was, in fact, another age. It was called...
We found another age.
They go, like, like Tiny Moro walks up to Miyazaki and whispers in the air, Mr. President, there's been a second age that's hit the building.
I like that. Dark Souls 4, there was another age.
Dark Souls 4 cycle board in the chat.
Cycle 4.
Oh my god. Anyway, so yeah, like again, if there's gonna be any announcements from Software and stuff, maybe I'll call you up and we'll have to do this again because we'll see what there's anything worth chatting about. But thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on
anytime.
I hope everybody in the chat and everybody watching enjoyed it as well. All you VOD viewers, thank you for giving it there. Think about maybe giving it a like and stuff like that, and maybe give a subscribe to good old Acer here. You know, he's really hard on subs right now. He really could use them. So
yes.
So make sure that you guys give some proper love to this man over here. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody.
Do that. Wishlist my game.
Yeah.
Find my game, linked somewhere, and wishlisted.
You gotta
I won't give you much more than that.
It, you know? Yeah.
Hey, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm cleaning up a docks area that connects to the final area that I need to overhaul. So it's like 1.5 more area overhauls. And I'm done.
Yeah.
Content complete, but for a couple of polishings and some clutter placements here and there.
I better add it to the backlog then. I'm gonna have to play that for sure. See what all the hubbub is about. Was it worth that 8 year long wait? How long has it been now?
It's been a while.
Been a while. Just been a while. All right, guys.
Been a while.
Will you? Oh, last thing before we go. Will you choose the age of again, or will you choose the age of no?
Give me the age of again. Let's see how much more dark the souls can take.
Hey, listen. This time will be different. If it didn't work the first 3 times, the 4th time for sure. I've been betting on that for Bloodborne on PC every time. It's only turned me wrong yet. So come on, like at some point this is gonna work, right?
Dark Souls 4, Artorias is back.
Somehow
everyone is here. Artorias, Sif, Nameless King, Ivory King. All of your favorites are here.
Oh my god. Okay, so we're calling it here, guys. Thanks so much again. Ciao.
Bye-bye, guys.